Hello and welcome, Calling All Heroes family.
It's the end of the road.
Now, a rotation. Unlucky, going in the back, attempting to give some mobility to the Orisa, who needs that speed to come in close. The Terra Surge pulling them into the center, getting a two-piece with a Javelin into the wall. And that's going to be Exo being able to eliminate the remaining few.
What happens there? Valentine goes super aggressive, finds Velvet. Oh my god, that might be a huge pickoff for Mari, but Mari will get traded out in a little bit too far away from support, sadly. So it was a great opening pick, but the overextension and they were a little bit caught out in this situation, right, with Mari going that deep.
And still can't dislodge Timeless Ethereal from this high ground. They're gonna need the barrage to do it.
And they're not even gonna use the cage fight as well. It's just pure raw damage and aim from Zoe exploding up in Timeless Ethereal's face.
Yeah, trying to make sure that Timeless Ethereal don't show up at their spawn door, but knock knock, they're already here. They got the angle on the high ground though. This be enough for Wisp to find a body.
Yeah, there we go. Well, okay, I'm
two.
sorry. Wisp saw a pixel. Oh, Mari needs some serious help from AJMR and Wicca, but it's AJMR instead. And needs that assistance. What a shot, Wisp! What has gotten into you? We've seen a lot of these rosters kind of shift and grow along the way.
Every single game is going to be a dogfight.
You know, the whole circuits led up to this.
And we will see you at the championships.
Hello and good evening, my friends, as we are here to continue on. What a glorious trailer to show what it's all come to. I am Rich Rad alongside Kenobi. My friend, we get to be here on day 2 of 4 extremely exciting days worth of this championship.
I mean, like you heard in that video, that was great. I mean, I got chills watching that one, but I think everything is led up to this, and there's no one, Rich, I'd rather be with than casting with you right now. Our first cast of the year, getting to kind of venture into this Calling All Heroes circuit and getting here to be here for that championships. I'm just absolutely excited. And day 1 was already fantastic. Coming into day 2, I can't wait to see more fantastic overall.
Yeah, there's such a thrill to be able to sit back and watch the competition, and even for that happening off screen on the broadcast, looking at the bracket, we'll talk about that as well, but we can really dive into the schedule of what we've got. And you could see yesterday that we had on day 1 those 3 amazing rounds going into today before entering into the 3rd and 4th day, which again, you get a little bit of extra Overwatch with that round on day 3. So for those looking for drops, they get to recoup some value there.
Yeah, I mean, drops are always important when we're talking about kind of what we're doing here on this channel. And I think the other thing about what we've seen so far with this tournament is that this feels like a little bit of an aperitif like day 2, right? Day 1, we saw some of those upper round 1, upper round 1A, upper round 1B, but now we're getting into the really nitty gritty, the meat of that tournament. And there is that lower round 2 that we're going to be looking out for, but semis upper and semis upper A and B are going to be 2 matchups that I think going forward are going to be really good litmus tests for what we see in terms of the favorites and those who are maybe climbing their way to try and beat those at the top.
Well, and just also the dynamic that we got to see a lot of yesterday, which is also hero selection. That was something we didn't get to see as much when it came to Major 3 or also towards that previous one just the week prior, where now Hazard is just becoming full force and what is so heavily selected. You and I really got to talk about it before the broadcast, during the broadcast yesterday, and now we'll be seeing a lot more of it today, and how we can really start understanding this, adjustment to those types of mechanical changes as well, which again, going into a championship bracket like this with so many teams when it's all to play for, you gotta be really in line and on point to be able to succeed at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of went from that Mauga meta that we saw a lot in Major 3, where it was only just the Mauga, and we're seeing kind of Hazard take the role as just being that hero that's really the focal point, I think, for a lot of these compositions. It works a little bit aesthetically like a lot of the other, Winston kind of compositions that we've seen so far, where the Hazard is very good at taking that space, getting those dives in. I think Tank is a big focal point. Supports, I think, are also something that's interesting, because we've seen, especially yesterday, we saw some teams that are preferring Ana over something like the Kiriko that we're seeing paired along with Lucio, so I think it'll be interesting to see what teams are going to be opting in for that support matchup, because I think Ana offers a little bit something different, right? You don't have something like a Tsune, or you not like Tsune, you don't have something like a Suzu, but you have something like Anti-Nade, and Anti-Nade is fantastic at dealing with something like Hazard in that front line if you can secure those kills, but that means Suzu on the other side equally as important. So when we look at the support play, that's really where I think we're going to be seeing those little niche things really make impact.
And for those that were intensely listening but also watching, even with that selection of like the Ana and the competition, there's always room for some Torbjorn 1v1 action with a hammer kill. So we can never go unnoticed or making comments towards that, as you know, we look a lot at this replay, and again, this is only day one footage that we got to see the intensity and the selection and those specific niche changes that you mentioned that are really, I think, going to be the forefront of what we see remaining over the course of these next few days.
Yeah, I think the other thing when we talk, we talk about the supports, the tank obviously very important when we see how strong Hazard has become and how important Hazard has become. I think the Genji as well as the Sojourn are also two very impactful ones. The Genji more so. I think Genji operates a little bit how an off tank used to in Overwatch 1, where you had that ability to take space, a lot of mobility on that Genji. Survivability is another thing Genji offers, so you can have the Genji kind of be on that side or just spam from the front. Like, there are two different ways to play in terms of where you want to be operating that Genji. So we'll see again as the meta evolves and how these teams evolve, knowing each other a little bit more, knowing the meta a little bit more, where we're going to be seeing the chess pieces be placed on the board.
And the evolution has to come swiftly as every team continues to fight against, what they've had in these previous weeks, making sure that they adapt quickly enough, because they're fighting for some serious prize money here. I mean, it is just a plentiful amount that you can see first place having $10,000, then dropping down per to fifth place, even down into that 6th, 7th, and 8th, where you're still getting that 500 per team. So there's everything to play for here.
Yeah, nice little chunk of change, and as we're starting off, on that lower side, you only have that one left, so it's really going to be do or die for a lot of these teams, especially as we continue to move forward in this bracket, and we'll see really which team is going to be elevating themselves to getting that $10,000 prize pool.
Well, and then again, we're talking specifically about players and what they get when they're, performing at such a high caliber, but can't forget about the viewers. But we could talk a little bit about that before we go into the awards that they actually get even further outside of that prize money. I would love to have something like this to show.
These are so sick.
These are so amazing. And again, just being able to receive these championship trophies really, I think, brings so much to it, as this is presented by Blacklight. Again, they have been a tremendous sponsor to bring something like this to these individuals. And as I was mentioning just before going into this, we also do have the championship awards as well, that they do receive 5 of these Blacklight Kraken Pro gaming chairs, which again, just the unlimited gaming experience on ergonomic chairs, one chair at a time. Like, everybody that sits in one of these, I continue to just look at this from a distance and say, man, I really, really think I need to get one of these.
Yeah, I remember when I was first started casting, I was using a chair from my kitchen, and I would have loved one of these at that point. So, I definitely think that this is a fantastic, again, more to play for both of these teams in terms of, getting that trophy. That was so awesome. And this chair presented by Blacklight. I mean, it's just even more incentives to perform well.
And again, you talking about how you had like a kitchen chair. For me, it was the old school like fold out one, where like it like fold open and like you sit on.
Oh.
Yeah.
You had like a metal fold out
it's
chair
a long
that they have
time
at
ago.
concerts.
Yeah, then what I'd do is I'd take one of my pillows and like I'd sit on it, because it was always really hard and uncomfortable when it was one of the metal ones. Yeah, that's how bad it was. So yeah, for all of those that get to be sitting in those chairs and being able to play at such a competitive level, but also for those that are, able to be part of the giveaway as well. There's so much aspect of it. But as we've talked a lot about sitting your butts down, you're going to want to sit all your butts down, because this is the bracket that we have to show you, and start leaning into what teams we're going to be see continue to progress over the course of this 4 days. And this bracket is a lot to take in. So, Kenobi, we can really dive into some of the most significant things that we've at least noticed both on broadcast yesterday and outside of it.
I think one of the coolest things about what I'm seeing with this bracket so far is when you look at that quarterfinal, to me, no 3-0s. I love that we're having a lot of these teams that feel so competitive. Nightmare got a map taken off them. EXO got a map taken off them. There are a lot of, that 5-map banger between Valentine and Shikigami. There are a lot of really, really good teams that are fighting at such a, I think, equilibrium level right now. And I think that really is going to be something great to look forward to as we go through the rest of this tournament, that there is a lot of parity still available, even though we are in just day 2.
Well, even one of the ones specifically that we look at too, I mean, I know we're going to the lower bracket, but where it was Yasp able to upset Queen Gambit, and then now we take a look down below, we get to see Queen Gambit's moving into this to compete against Puppy Girl, going to try and move their way through to maybe have this redemption round. But again, we're going to be able to see one of these games out the gate here in that 3rd round bracket duo between Fable and Hypnos Isolus.
Yeah, and we can talk a little bit more about that Fable versus Hypnos Isolus matchup, because that is going to be the one we're going to be starting out with. And I think this will be an interesting one for me in terms of, again, the hazard play is going to be the thing that I think makes or breaks a lot of this in terms of just like where we go from like the tip of the spear, because I think hazard is so important. But there are those, again, other little, niche things that matter as well. You have the Ana versus Kiriko debate. You have the Genji play that's also important. I think Lucio does offer a little bit in terms of, being valuable in compositions like this, timing your beats, boops and stuff like that, very like small micro things that are going to matter. But a lot of the time Lucio is kind of just there to eat rails like it was back in Jote's meta. So we'll see if there's going to be less of that in something like this hazard play that we're going to be seeing. Probably for the most part. I think that there are some maps obviously that don't necessitate hazard that much, where you can see something like an Orisa, see something like a Sigma, something like that, but I think for the most part it's going to be hazard all the way.
As we get to take a look at the roster here, again, Fable is who we get to take a look at first. And again, one of the individuals that we consistently have talked about or seen before, you and I, Avery, a big name that we know just from collegiate and other aspects being on this team. But again, this roster in and of itself is one that has so much talent on board.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw them during Major 3 when you and I were casting that, and I think that this was a fantastic team to watch. Avery, again, if we're going to be talking about tanks, Avery is someone that you and I, again, very familiar with back on Bellevue and Collegiate, and I think that this is, Avery, from what I remember from Avery plays pretty much everything at a very high level, so I think that they are going to be someone to look out for to kind of be that tip of the spear that I was talking about with the hazard play.
And just the amount of flexibility I think that gives a team like this when you have such a deep hero pool can really make a tremendous difference as well when you're going against these later portions of the bracket in this championship. But as we take a look at their counterpart, who they'll be facing off against, and just being able to see, again, a lot of this great talent. The one thing that, again, I'm so focused on, you touched on the aspect of like the support change up and the synergy and going to see a lot of hazard, but it's also just this DPS duo as well and how it's going to match up against each other.
Yeah, I think that's important, and if we're talking about DPS, the head coach of this team is Vision, another person we are very familiar with back in Collegiate.
I know.
And if there's anyone who I want coaching me in a DPS matchup, Vision is the one who I would want. Vision, it was so incredible, and I think that this is definitely a boon for this team to have someone who was so good at being that DPS kind of star back on Maryville, back in Overwatch League as well when we saw them. So I think that this is a team that is incredibly well coached. When we saw them yesterday on broadcast, they had some really good plays in terms of just being able to utilize their macro effectively. So I think that, again, going into this, when we start here on Control and Lianxing Tower, which is our first map, it's going to be kind of these two teams feeling each other out, especially because we're in lower round. And when we're in lower round, mistakes like are elevated by like 10x, 100x. Like, it's so difficult in terms of being able to just like keep that composure, right? Take a deep breath. That's really what it's going to be about.
And as we do take a deep breath entering in, it's going to be everything to play for here, because this is that lower bracket segment. So one of these teams is going to go home. Lianxing Tower sets the tone as we enter in onto our first map, which is going to be Night Market.
This would be an interesting kind of map to start us off, because I think there is possibility for Pharah. You know, this Night Market's been a Pharah map since the dawn of time, right? It's kind of always been there, and I think that there is the potential to play a Pharah in a meta like this where you don't necessarily have anything to counteract you, right? There's his Sojourn, you can kind of be a little bit anti-air with that, but it's not something like another hit scan on the other side. So I think that Pharah is something to potentially look out for as the two teams roll out, but it could also just be that standard Genji Sojourn DPS line, and we'll see how those two are going to be operating.
And once the TPs vanish, it will go. Ooh, okay, so we do get to see at least a little bit of the far, like you mentioned.
So the spam potential is going to be huge here from Fable, right? Midland is going to be in the air, doing up pumping out a lot of damage. And one of the things about this composition, where with the hazard, is you don't have a way necessarily to get onto that Pharah or put down that much pressure. So that spam is going to be a lot. There's no peel.
Great reposition though. Avery finds that isolated position onto what, getting that early takedown, and now with the Lucio falling in suit, it's going to be an easy take transition back to the point.
And you saw just the pressure the Pharah was outputting. No kills, but it was just direct after direct after direct after direct straight onto Dear Girl, forced the hazard out of the fight, and then Avery takes all of that space away from the entirety of Hypnos. That's a great first engagement, and Fable playing around this Pharah extremely well. We'll see if Hypnos is going to try and find a way to get around this Pharah, because right now the spam and just the positioning that is being taken away is so well done.
Alpha being topped up for the moment. What getting quickly delve onto. Nice synergy between both Fiery and Avery to collapse this rotation to pincer what is an easy pickup here.
Yeah, what thought that was a 1v1? No. There was a Lucio surprise just in the backline, helping out in that Sojourn battle, ends up winning it for them. And now Fable gonna continue to hold positioning right here, seeing if they can find some takes on the way out. And I think, Hypnos had the right idea going through that flank. You don't want to be going out into the open against something like a Pharah, but again, Fable, with the positioning that they have, just playing so well around the fact that they know they have this advantage with the spam of the Pharah.
Kitsune Rush is what I'm quickly focusing on. We're into this. Z Panther, though, able to get it up just in time to have it to match if necessary. Big pickup early, though. Again, just constantly getting these early eliminations onto Hypnos before they can ever take any sort of engagement.
Yeah, these are all neutral fight wins, and it's just, again, by the virtue of the pressure that this Pharah is exuding, and there's, again, not really a way for Hypnos to deal with it. You see what is at 55% to ult charge. That means what hasn't really been in a position to put any pressure down, and this positioning from Fable, I'm really enjoying. 5-pack of ultimates for them in this next fight, and they're going to start aggressively with the Kitsune Barrage.
Big man so low up top, able to get healed and brought back into the fight, but still in a dangerous position. Now, drawing back, Fable giving some space, has the ultimates to necessarily pivot onto this, and actually able to do so. A sweeping strike comes in with the rocket barrage from an off angle, and that's going to be a lot of ultimates committed, but we're in the home stretch. They have no other need to worry. No one's touching from Hypnos, and that's an easy round one here for Fable.
Really like the aggression from Fable during that last fight as well. Just going Kitsune Rush like immediately. They know they had an advantage with all the ultimates that they had. They just go aggressively with that Kitsune Rush, make the enemy team play reactive, which is what you never want to be doing kind of in Overwatch. Kitsune Rush is forced out. It's not really a fantastic one. It felt like a desperation one more so than anything. And then Fable's like, even if we're trading ultimates here, we know we have 5. We know we have the advantage no matter what. So I think that was really good macro understanding from them and playing to their advantages. And that Pharah completely just took Hypnos out of it during that first map. And I don't know if we'll see it on a map like this. It is still a very good Pharah map, but this could be where it's a little bit more easier to go on to the point, especially when you have that side room to play through and the Pharah might not get the same amount of value.
Waiting patiently to see what that decision is, and they're going to look to keep it. I mean, it's not really a surprise if they've got the early advantage
broke,
and it
don't
works.
fix it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, broke, don't fix it, and we'll see. I mean, already a pick onto what? So, I mean, Mythman is just saying, you know what? This Pharah is working out very well. Let's keep it rolling, and that means there's nothing to do with the Pharah, especially with the Sojourn gone. Now it's no DPS, and that's going to be a wipe. Hypnos are going to be going down.
Rockets just come raining in from the distance and hits pay dirt. That's such an easy take now for Fable, and can just really look for the angle that Hypnos is going to want to enter in on.
And now it's kind of, for Hypnos, I'm trying to think like, okay, how are we going to deal with this Pharah? Because it can't just be left in the sky like this. And they're going to actually opt into the Tracers, so taking away the Genji and offering a little bit more of that frontline potential flanking as well, where you can go put some pressure on that backline maybe, instead of just like trying to beat your head against the wall of the Pharah with the Genji.
You can see that McMahon being very aware of this. Almost gets a second redirect onto that, just consistently harassing that Tracer play within the Pagoda. Now you see this also on the outskirts. Avery just completely taking out this Lucio play again. It's so consistent the way that Fable's been playing.
I do like the way that Hypnos are kind of thinking about it, though, with the Tracer to kind of pull the members back and, you know, go to point, try and force the kind of initiative a little bit on themselves to just see, like, okay, if we can maybe get the Pharah back onto point, we can get the other members forward. But again, the peel, I think, from Fiery, every time that we've seen Hypnos go on any of these flanks back in the first map, and on this map too, Fiery's just always there, fantastically playing this Lucio to peel. So again, Fable really in control right now, and I don't know how Hypnos are going to get back into this one. They have to make some miracles happen, especially at such an ultimate deficit.
Let's see now. This rotation towards White Room. A lot of damage though with this consistent applied pressure from Reva. No full execution just yet. Health value's low, but that Kitsune Rush is going to give so much agency to Fable here. Rockets come in from the side, getting 2 once again. That off angle completely bamboozling Hypnos to be unable to do anything about it.
Yeah, now we're at 75% and ticking upwards right here. By the time we get to this next fight, it's going to be last fight, and Hypnos, I mean, they're going to be able to throw a lot of ultimates into this team fight, but there is that sound barrier, which is going to be great at blanketing all that incoming damage.
Ooh, the downpour comes in, doesn't quite land. A nice sidestep from the Pharah play in the air. as that's already 2 down, most specifically going to lose the support. You at least have this Lucio play attempting to try and counteract against it, but once the fight is done across the bridgeway, it's a turn tail and go back to base kind of moment, because that is an easy elimination and a first map win here for Fable.
Very convincing first map win for Fable as well, and it felt like it was the Pharah all the time throughout a lot of that. The Pharah just gets so much value. I mean, from literally the get-go, Rich, we saw McMahon roll out on Pharah, hit 2 directs onto the Hazard, and then I don't think Hypnos had a foothold in the game for the rest of it, like for the rest of that map entirety. So I think that they just really understood the value that the Pharah brought. And again, with a Genji and a Sojourn, you don't have a lot to deal with the Pharah in the sky like that. There's no natural counter, and there wasn't any swaps to deal with it. So if you're Fable, you're just like, layup, thank you very much. We'll take that one, alley-oop, slam dunk that one in, and then we're just going to take a map 1 very easy.
And now going into the next map selection, and with how well the Pharah was played, again, it's one of those things where you take a little bit of a risk if there's no way to really handle it. What is that next map selection going to look like? We can take a look at some of the replays here, and again, we actually get, I think, a couple of good glimpses of, even just outside of the Pharah factor, the synergy that's between Avery and Fiery, which you and I commented about, in these flanking positions, the understanding and the timing of this, and you even touched base on it at the top of the broadcast, this dive still kind of Winston mentality of coordination, I think, is so important to really recognize.
Yeah, I think Fiery is the support I want in my ranked games, you know, helping me when I play DPS, because I need a lot of help when I play DPS, and Fiery definitely was there helping a lot of the time on those flanking maneuvers. It felt like every time there was a flank opportunity for Hypnos and trying to get like a 1v1 against the DPS, Fiery was always there, and that communication, very, very important. Like you mentioned, the peel potential of Lucio. We talked about how Lucio kind of just eats rails a lot of the time against Sojourn, but that was kind of how you make Lucio shine, is when you can be that kind of secondary peel instead of something like the tank.
100%, as we do get to see what that next map is going to be. Some hesitation here from Hypnos, really trying to think about what is going to best favor them after how dominant Fable was, specifically with this Pharah. And I think that that's going to be a major factor in contribution to the decision in what map they want to bring to the table.
Yeah, a non-fair map.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, anything in terms of like non-fair. I think also Lijiang Tower is like a very, very, you know, Pharah-based map. You can play it on pretty much any one of those maps. Even on Control Center, you can still maneuver Pharah pretty well. So that's one that I think if you're Hypnos, you're thinking about, it's like, okay, we got Pharah, let's, you know, map 1, put it in the back of our minds, let's go to map 2 and see if we can get something different where it's a little bit more open, potentially where we can maybe play a little bit of that hit scan, or just negate the Pharah entirely, go to a much more enclosed map where the Pharah might not get that much value.
Yeah, and trying to remove the skybox that can be so viable. But the other part of this too is when we do think about, you know, trying to reduce the skybox, even if we look at the way and methodology that the Pharah was being played on Lijiang, like, yes, there's a lot of high ground that you could take, but even just understanding these parallels of, you know, can I take a side angle or this side doorway, as we're going to be now confirming Route 66, which again has a very high skybox when it comes to the first and second. Things get a little bit more encapsulated towards that third segment, but still seeing with that long range hit scan is going to be extremely helpful.
Yeah, I think this is like a kind of a challenge map where it's, you know, if you want to play Pharah against us, you have to play against Widowmaker, probably. It's going to be like or like something like an Ashe, or, you know, something very long-range hit scan that's going to take out the Pharah. And with these long kind of alleyways that you have, the Pharah might not necessarily get the same amount of value as it did in those very enclosed areas when we go on to Lijiang Tower or something like that. So I think this is a fantastic pick. I think you can play Pharah here. Not saying you can't. It especially with how good McMahon was playing, but I think it does negate the possibility of it a little bit more, and we could go back to standard meta that we're seeing right now, which is that Genji Sojourn, which might be where we see a little bit more even footing, because when the Pharah was out, it was not close, and the more we move away from that, probably the better it's going to be for Hypnos.
Yeah, when you really start making that skill gap, at least from what we've seen from the composition, kind of narrow a little bit, and going onto this map, which again, it's been so much more heavily seen on Route 66. I can't remember the last time you and I, probably over the course of these series of broadcasts, that we've seen it most, and to have it.
I don't think we saw it all of last year.
That's what I mean. Like, that's what I'm saying. Is like, now we actually get to see it come back into such consistent play that it really just kind of gives a new life to it, and we really get to start diving into the nitty-gritty of it and almost learn it all over again with the adjustment to heroes and just overall, like, patch note changes.
Yeah, and it will kind of operate a little bit how it used to with that. Like, Winston was always like very good in this map, right? Where controlling those high grounds very important, and with Hazard and his ability to get onto those high grounds, negate some, you know, hold space is another thing that he's very good at. Kind of like he doesn't have Winston bubble, but having that ability to just like hold your defensive and then you can't die. Like it's pretty good, the damage reduction. So I think that we'll be seeing kind of something similar in that regard. But on the defensive end, it actually looks like we will be seeing Echo come out on this defensive end instead of something like the Genji. So still having a flyer in the air, but having a little bit more of that, I'll say, ability to maneuver around the hit scan and burst potential instead of something like a Pharah. So I think this is them for Fable thinking like, okay, we still wanted to play something similar to a Pharah, but we're going to go with Echo, which is a little bit more of a safer option against something like a Widowmaker.
You can see, what a beautiful sleep. We get the tail end of that. Easy shot. Just force back Avery for the moment with, again, a couple of decent body shots. Nice rock coming off the wall there to dislodge for the moment, making it not so easy for these clean shots for what, but still being very aware. Yeah, Deergirl going to bring in that Winston blade, trying to counteract. Just eludes the sleep dart. You could hear it whizzing by. That could have been devastating if that landed for the brief moment. Dropping down, getting extremely overwhelmed, locked in the corner. Beautiful positioning, and just completely isolates Deergirl.
Yeah, fantastic wall from Avery there as well, just making able to secure that pick, because once there's no Winston cooldown to be able to jump out of that, you can just put that wall down, fantastically played, puts Winston in a box, and you can't get out of that one. So Avery really starting off strong on this hazard play. I mean, Winston can still work here. I think they're going to be trying to farm up towards that nano boost and then have that Winston engage, kind of like old Winston on a composition.
Structure shot once again on top. Hopefully dislodged some of the positioning behind the sign. Dive goes in, but we take the other position where McMahon playing up top attempts the focusing beam, but nobody really low enough to get that full value. But unfortunately with that reposition, what a recall as well by Reva.
I'm loving the counter dives that we're seeing from Fable. Whenever Deergirl is diving in on this Winston, there's always a counter dive from Avery and McMahon into the backline, but a nice sleep takes Avery low, and the antis follow.
Nice pick up there. Avery's going to go down. Deergirl gets that extra follow through with the supports, giving the assistance. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Dislodging this high ground has been extremely beneficial. Deergirl really just utilizing that wall to mitigate a lot of the incoming fire. And you've got the nano boost to dive in to give push come to shove. So much more enabled aggression to give space and get this checkpoint.
And that was that was all really on Clear. Clear hit a fantastic leap. I was talking about those counter dives from Avery. Avery gets hit by the sleep, gets hit with an anti, and then gets taken down. That's one of the things that Ana is so good against in regards to dealing with Hazard. And Rich, it's interesting. Clear is someone that you and I actually casted way back in 2021. Chinese contenders. I'm on this broadcast, so I got to talk about Chinese on First Fabulous Fighter. Yeah. So I'm really excited that we're seeing a name that you and I know from way back in the day here in Colorado.
Even when you say it, I always just think FFF. In her shorthand form. With now the duplicate coming out, McMahon attempting to do some work on the Sojourn, getting that rail shot charged very quickly, but no overclock to be had since there's not really anybody putting their body in the way to get that charge fast enough before the duplicate ends. Reva now diving forward, has the pulse, the Echo out of the duplicate, left vulnerable, no real way to escape at that 50% HP. And now this is where so much value can be accrued, where Hypnos is taking advantage of these staggered and separated players from Fable.
Yeah, and I'm really liking the decision-making of bringing the Tracer to the table, as Deergirl's going to go down, but it shouldn't matter too much. Avery actually will swap over to the D.Va, which is something Avery very adept at, but with that Winston going down, it actually might be a bigger deal than I thought, because now you don't have that ability to stay forward with the team, and I mean, Winston always struggles against something like a D.Va here, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for Deergirl to kind of pilot this champ.
My ultimate is almost ready.
For this reposition on the high ground. A couple of decent shots, can't quite land, barely gets out of the shot range. Disruption, denying them space on the high ground. It's not going to be easy when you've got shots like that being placed on that high ground. As Avery now going to look to chase back and look for a flank. Again, this reposition, diving in, instantly getting a pick, and now Clear falling in suit.
Yeah, that was all Z-Panther there, who hit a fantastic anti-nade on Debochi during that rally, which basically took him down and was easy pickings for the Sojourn with that overclock to take down the Brigitte during that rally, so he got no value essentially, and now feels like Hypnos are, stalled a little bit, where they had such a good momentum in that first couple of points, and now still on this Winston composition trying to find their footing again. You see that nano boost though, going directly onto Deergirl. That's what they want to see.
See that nade fly by. Capture more of this great engagement as Deergirl drops down below. Shot on the outskirts instantly onto Reva. So now McMahon gonna look to dive in onto the back line. Shots continue to rain though. By what? Looking to see if this overclock can bring value to the team. Recall goes backwards inside the barrier, but there's no way to get any else assistance. And now just looks to run. Fable can't on this attack get a stable footing to try and piece this back together.
McMahon is down, so that means there is not a lot of damage here. It's just Minimi left kind of, but they're coming back from spawn, and I don't know if there's a way for Fable to get their footing back behind them right now. Z-Panther trying to live as best as they can here, and Avery should be going down soon. Huh?
You can see down below though, trying to keep that car moving.
Cast a curse.
Now Pulse Bomb looking to be stuck. Patience is a virtue right now, minute and 30 seconds still to go. Avery has the self-destruct, could really use that as a zoning mechanism to force back and divide the team, take advantage of it elsewhere. Reposition now, looking to dive onto the supports. What a big pickup! Huge combination to get that nade as well to land. Panther coming in hot. And another sleep as well! You highlighted how significant the supports can be, and this Ana is on point.
Yeah, this first point, it was Clear who was really the MVP, and now it feels like it's turned back over to Z-Panther as the self-destruct is going to be used as an extra life here. Primal Rage from Dear Girl. Slept! I mean, Z-Panther is just taking names with these sleep darts.
Now things start to get a little dicey with 50 seconds to go. 25 HP and needs to get some coverage. Dropping down below. Rally gives some protection here for Fable to hopefully continue. As you're going to see a little bit of a pause because this is the last fighting moment.
Last fight, and oh, another sleep. I mean, that's on the other side from Clear, though. Fiery gonna be able to survive just a little bit longer as Fable, they really have some, they have all the ultimate economy advantage right now. They have an overclock, they have a nano boost as well if they want to give that to the overclock just to win the fight outright, or they can give it to the D.Va and just make it difficult for the supports to live here. Clear needs to find a way towards this nano boost. Another huge sleep and nade again!
Oh, and the dive that comes in, they quickly just push in with the overclock, getting an easy 2. There's the third. Everything just crumbling here for Hypnos. That was so devastating, and everything hinges on the play that comes in from Z-Panther down that caveway, and it just, any hope of getting back to that payload just instantaneously liquefies.
I mean, Z-Panther was playing out of their minds completely during that second part of Route 66. It felt like it was a really good start from Hypnos there with this Winston composition. I love the decision making from them, some great plays from Clear, but man, Z-Panther, every time it felt like I looked at one of the members of Hypnos up on that top right of the screen, slept. Yep. Someone has Z's by their name or their anteater or anything like that. So I think that was just a fantastic performance, and that felt like very much, when you talk about carry on a performance, that's what it is.
Dreamland is coming often to many of those on Hypnos, and let's see now as they go onto the defense if they're able to maybe get some sweet dreams onto their opponent as well. Looking at least the composition, going to be sticking close to what they had, no real changes here, and again, really looking to see what Reva's going to be able to bring to the table here, and that Tracer, I feel, is just seeming to come up a little short. It's just not being able to gain as much value as I think it really could be.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit hard as well with giving, you know, against a D.Va especially, it's very easy for D.Va to kind of be everywhere and blanket that Tracer with the potential to just sit there with Defense Matrix, and with the mobility you have as well. So I think that's really more on Fable's side, making the Tracer, because I think the Tracer can definitely work here in these situations and put that pressure down onto that backline. Pulse is also incredibly good against something like Brigitte, Ana, very immobile backlines, but when you have someone as good as Avery on that D.Va performing and blanketing that Tracer and making sure the Tracer doesn't get that same amount of value, I think that's really where the value's coming, or the lack of value, I should say, is coming from. And now we're actually going to be seeing McMahon go into the Tracer, so we're going to have that TBT, and we'll see if Reva's going to be able to step up to the challenge.
I always like seeing a good TVT. Makes things a lot more thrilling. You see the dive quickly on to Big Earl. Nice whip shot. The drop down below is able to still stick close to the payload, so there's still progression to be had. Though, needing to be cautious of the incoming damage onto both McMahon and that Sojourn play was Clear, continuing to give a lot of healing into Dear Girl as this corner is going to get really dicey really fast as that quick engagement onto Clear becomes so dangerous.
Yeah, that was a really good attempt to dive into the backline, but the really good nade keeps Clear alive, and now the counter dive comes in. Dear Girl getting low, but manages to stay alive.
And again, just Deer Girl very much understanding this ebb and flow of entering in onto it. Payload, though, down below, still about to turn this corner, getting closer. Nice whip shot to get rid of Reva, so that's going to give so much more opportunity here for Fable to really pick apart this high ground defensive position. One player after another, and again, yeah, really throwing that into the mix here from Clear to hopefully deny that is going to be significant.
Boost power to the Winston, trying to take down one of the members in the backline. Fiery does go down, so that's a healer lost. And Z Panther as well. Great patience, but actually traded back for 2 somehow, some way.
Yeah, Clear eliminated, so this is, well, there's the second. I was going to say 1 healer remains, but Avery's not going to let that be long for this world as a Primal Rage is looking to do some value to buy some time on the payload, but it won't be able to completely rectify the damages that have been done, as this will be a pulse bomb stick from McMahon to guarantee the scientist is sent back to spawn.
Well, I thought that fight was completely over after those first 2 kills from Hypnos, but somehow, someway, Fable, I think it was another sleep from Z Panther that I saw, turns that fight completely on its head, and somehow, someway, it's going to be Hypnos who lose that fight, and now 4.5 minutes in the time bank for Fable to move through second, which they look so crisp and clean on in that previous round that we saw. And with this ultimate advantage, I mean, they still have a nano boost to work with. They have a self-destruct, so Avery has a second life, and Reva on the flank trying to find something with the pulse, but scouted out.
Yep, McMahon right there, looking to push it. Reva's like, I can't be sneaky, no stealth. Agility for me. Recall, though, forced out. Reva gonna attempt to play closely to this payload for the moment, but the nano comes out instantly while the overclock is unleashed. There is so much damage to be had here, but everyone looks to hide. No one wants to walk out into this firing range. Now, high ground still maintained, and Z Panther gets rid of what?
I mean, it was decent for Reva to kind of stall as much as they could there in that scenario, and we'll see Avery try and push the pace a little bit here, see if they can pick up some stragglers. Oh, she does go down, so that's the Brigitte gone. Can they find Clear off the back of it too? But it's traded for Fiery.
Avery now looking to rotate back with the group. Sticking close. They've done a great job keeping distance. In fact, you have now this high ground denied once again. Big shot and assist. Avery just going to completely shut down what? Where there's no real hit scan that can do any damage onto Fable. It's just these consistent staggered picks that's really making it challenging for Hypnos.
Tracer does manage to find Z Panther, but Fiery is now back into this fight. Rally is going to be available soon, so that means there's so much sustainability. Hypnos have nothing to work with, and Deer Girl just going to desperately go over to that Hammond just to try and touch.
Oh, they can't get there. You can see down below there's an attempt to touch, but it's just still too late. The block on the high ground, everything really just pulls together beautifully. And we talked a lot about McMahon and Avery and a lot of these things, but this play of the game, which again is something I think that is very warranted, Minami has been crushing it on this Sojourn.
Yeah, I think this is kind of where Sojourn really thrives, is in these scenarios when you have, you know, that ability to just get that nano boost during the overclock, and it's kind of just a shooting range at that point, especially against something like Winston, where it's not like a diva where you saw what Avery did when there was a overclock on the other side. Just sit in front of the Sojourn and throw up your defense matrix, and then there's nothing to do, and then Minami takes him out. So I think that this was just a great kind of show of composure as well from this Fable team, because they got rocked by Hypnos on that first one.
Yeah.
Like, it was crisp and clean from them, and they had all the momentum, but then it was a great stop. The switches were fantastic. Avery going on to the Diva against that Winston. I love that decision-making in that matchup, and Z Panther, again, played out of their minds completely on this defensive end.
Yeah, when you really can like use this Ana to its full potential and just get value as we've seen, I mean, I still remember so many like rare occasions where you and I have casted just such significant Ana play, and we get to see it really just start to rise to the surface of how well and how impactful a quality Ana play. If you're like feeling it that day, you're really impacting the game.
I love Ana play. I think it's probably like one of my favorite sports to just watch, just because of the, you know, carry potential you have, which we saw, I mean, from Z Panther and from Clear there as well. Clear, that first fight that Hypnos won was off the back of a fantastic sleep and then an anti-nade that took down the Hazard, and it was nice to also see kind of moving away from Hazard a little bit in terms of what the meta was, seeing some Winston again, seeing some Diva again. I think that was interesting, because I think Hazard, it doesn't have the same, I think, ability on demand to, you have the dive on demand, but it's like much easier for like Diva and Winston, things like that, to kind of maneuver around Route 66 on something like that. So I think that this was an interesting match that I don't think we'll see probably much more Winston versus D.Va, I mean, I said we would probably see Hazard throughout the whole way, but we've seen a lot more of this other stuff, so we'll see what the third map choice is going to be. Again, we did see finally Fable moved off of the Flyer because the Echo was getting taken down a little bit and then going over to the Tracer. I think that was a good decision. So it did look a lot closer on this map than it did on the first one.
Ooh, and we're gonna go to Sarabasa. All right, so selection made, and I realistically think that this is a good option. Granted, we've seen Pharah on Sarabasa. It has brought value, and wouldn't be surprised if that's something that's brought to the table, or even the Echo to try and change it up a little bit, because there's a lot of these, interesting corridors. There's, channels at which that you can kind of take away from certain points or take those off angles to catch your opponent off guard, which is something that we got to see a lot of when it came to Lijiang Tower from Fable. So that's one of the things I think that's going to be important to pay attention to as we go into it, to see if maybe, they revert back a little bit to what was working for them so well.
Or revert back to Hazard, I think, is another potential option as well when we see just the state of the meta that we're in. I don't think this would be like a D.Va or Winston map. Maybe Orisa would be like kind of a wrinkle that we could see at the same time, but I think for the most part it's going to be just the standard Hazard meta that we've been seeing so far. The interesting wrinkle again would be, would we see something like the Ana? Would we see something like a Tracer as well? The Pharah, like you mentioned, I think those are kind of where we'll be seeing a little bit of those changes, because I think Hazard on a map like this where it's a little bit more on even footing on the ground, a lot easier to pilot. I think that's something where it's like Route 66 where you need a lot of that upward mobility like a D.Va, like a Winston.
Absolutely. I mean, the other aspect too is when you take a look at the Hazard and how, especially when it comes to the first flashpoint, like those two walls, when we get to see the encounter with Hazards going into it, is that the vault makes a big difference here in how you're going to utilize the architecture to get that high ground position. It gives a lot more opportunities. We're going to even get a pan here, beautifully timed, where we get to talk about how they can utilize those two high ground positions to look for entry, utilizing potentially the jagged wall to maybe displace or cause redirection and how a team's going to enter into it. So even from that first initial encounter where you see that value being gained before the next flashpoint and you can understand the rotation, I think is super important as well, because if you get that jump start and you get that early, it can really start snowballing these other positional advantages.
Yeah, I think that first jagged wall is going to be incredibly important just by the virtue of, can it find a pick, right? Because it is a very good tool at finding pick potential, right? If you like catch someone off guard with a jagged wall, they don't really know where to go, they have no ability to get healed, you can take down someone instantly and then find a pick, and then it's a 4v5 or 5v4, and you are in a very good position in terms of just being able to win the fight outright from there. So I think you're right that this first little engagement that we'll see in how those Hazards are going to be playing is going to be the most impactful part in kind of deciding who's going to be able to take this first flashpoint.
Now that we at least so far have confidence of the Hazard, we'll look to see what McMahon's going to bring to the table after the TP. And it is going to be okay. They're going to stick with the Genji, so we do have the mirrored composition going into Sarabasa.
I see the mirror compositions, and while my eyes are going to be on the Hazard, I'm also interested to see where we're going to be seeing those Genji's plays. As you can see, Deer Girl already going up onto that high ground. Avery staying more towards that low side, but now tries to get up there. And I like this decision from Hypnos, taking away this high ground and making Fable work for it.
Jagged Wall used very early, at least for Deer Girl in the back. Couldn't quite cause the division, but Avery used it more defensively as a blockade up front to stabilize before taking that backline position. Wall active once again to try and deny some angling from Fable, with this Genji up top still getting quite a bit of chip damage onto the backside, favoring Hypnos as they move forward onto the position, but Fable is okay giving ground for the moment as Avery's still there to capitalize and hold counter, but finally it's swapped over, and this is where the percentage starts to accumulate. And is Fable going to find a chance to get these eliminations in the back? What actually gets rid of McMahon? So that numbers advantage early favors Hypnos here.
Yeah, and that means Reva can play a little bit more aggressively on this Genji and pump out some damage without the threat of the enemy Genji taking him down. Avery will go down, and that should be a fight win for Hypnos, and they already had control of the points, so that means they're just accruing the percentage, and these straggler kills are going to be so valuable in terms of just getting that advantage, as Hypnos, I think, played that really patiently, really well. I think that was, when we see kind of these types of metas, a lot of it does come down to that positioning gained by the team to allow the Sojourns to get value with that rail shot, and we saw it was who came out in the advantage there.
And because of how fast the percentage accrues and the time with those staggers that's taking, this is really like the last fight territory for Fable. They have Z Panther, at least with this Kitsune Rush available. needing to utilize it. Oh my goodness, the damage on the McMahon. It's 1 HP in a dream. And Deer Girl gets the elimination, bringing it once again to a 5v4. The Kitsune Rush comes in late, and it's overlapped anyways by Hypnos, so they still get the benefit. Both DPS gone, wiped from the floor, as Fable now has a last-ditch effort to just try and have some sort of competition. A pick comes through onto what, but the damage is already done. And Hypnos at this point will take this first flashpoint and now look to shift to the second.
Really good patience from Bochi there. Bochi was getting taken down very low. Could have, if it was me, I would have panicked Soundbird right there. But that's why these are pros and I'm not. So really, really good patience. But as we come into this next fight, there's going to be a lot of ultimates that we have to talk about. The DPS ultimates are going to be there, but those sound barriers, very, very key, especially with how potentially like Ajaxable with the Sojourns that there are on a map like this. They have to be so careful on these Lucios to be able to get that Lucio sound barrier off.
Now Sound Barrier entering into this fight. Instant elimination. You can hear the just falling death and demise off the edge. And that's going to be Hypnos really taking control. And Surabasa is feeling so good for them right now.
Fable had a very aggressive ult there, but it was fantastic from Deer Girl. The downpour just completely negated that dive. And yes, all the ultimates had to be committed in that fight, but it was just such a win in terms of the positioning battle and the macro battle for Hypnos, where they used that they used the downpour so effectively to stop any type of engagement that Fable wanted to really, really be aggressive on. And that's going to allow Hypnos to also have an advantage here when it comes to this Kitsune Rush.
See, as the blade is unleashed, mirrored now 1-for-1, but it's going to be able to deny the blade follow through as Reva gets the better end of that exchange. 54% and climbing, and now we'll be in a last fight here once again for Fable.
This is looking like a completely different Hypnos team. I mean, they're playing so well on this mirror. They're not having to deal with anything like that fair. It seems like in the mirror versus mirror, Hypnos has a little bit of an advantage based on what we're seeing from Suravasa, and now they have all this positioning to work with. Z-Panther not necessarily at the Kitsune Rush yet, so here comes the Kitsune from Hypnos.
Yep, instantly going to be thrown down that choke point. Few seconds can be bought before having to go back in, but the team has to touch this point quick enough. They're not going to get there in time. Fable unable to peek that corner fast enough, and now just look to draw back and say we have to leave this, and we need to get the advantage as we shift into this next point.
Oh, you can see Hypnos are trying to chase though. They're trying to see if they can get some kills here, or potentially force out something like a Kitsune Rush. I think if you're Z-Panther, you have to be so careful with this, and now if you're Hypnos, you just leave. You want to get out.
Yep, Fable loses one.
They played that
down,
so
the
well.
Kitsune Rush is placed.
They played that so well, Hypnos. They disengaged completely from that Kitsune Rush, and now they got exactly what they wanted. They have a sound barrier to work with now. Just incredible macro understanding from them.
Instant movement speed forward. Everyone boosted to get onto the point to counteract against it, despite Fable starting to get the early lead. Avery is so low, needs to play cautiously until it is a full 5 and gives this up. It is the third flashpoint and the last one that Hypnos is going to require.
And that's going to be so difficult for Fable to get in without something like a pick. McMahon trying to dive and put pressure onto that back line. Actually, Bochi goes down. That means no sound barrier. That's a big pick.
Yep, now Avery's going to follow up instantly onto Reva, so this is 2 down, and Hypnos will have to give this up, but they're just gaining as much percentage as they can while still being able to salvage the remaining few. But this chase is going to be a little bit helpful here to also kind of offset some of that percentage.
Fable finally can stop the bleeding. They start to accrue some percentage for the first time. And we're going to be seeing them, and now see what Hypnos is going to do with this engagement. Both sound barriers available to each of these teams, but again, Tyrena just a little bit ahead in terms of that Kitsune Rush. That could be a difference maker.
Oh, beautiful evasion. Avery gets out of it just in time as a rail comes in, equalizing one, but unfortunately you've lost the sound barrier. Fable doesn't have that protection, so it's solely on the remaining few to have to work through this as the Kitsune Rush comes out from Hypnos, rotating around, and that aggression forward completely deletes Avery and has to make a desperate retreat and regroup for those that are remaining, but Deer Girl's gonna play aggressive and try and get this pick.
With the Kitsune, with the swap though, I think that's going to be Z-Panther getting out, but Fable didn't use any of the support ultimates during that, and Hypnos used a lot of ults to try and win that fight. So now if you're Fable, you're just trying to win this with the least amount of ult usage as possible so you can cycle and get back in that percentage advantage.
Yeah, managing the ultimate economy is going to be key for the long run adventure that lies ahead. Nice deflect for the moment to deny the damage as the blade comes out. Couple of decent slashes. A swift step gets at least a few more seconds worth of time, but that was a great redirect and a focus onto that movement to guarantee the elimination. And that puts Fable in a position of where they can now take this flashpoint and look to the next.
Hypnos did manage to force out both the support ultimates as well as the Dragon Blade, so they do kind of get a little bit more on that equilibrium when it comes to ultimate charge here. Potentially there's a chance that Hypnos might try and re-engage into this, maybe get something like the downpour from Avery, but they might just say, nah, we're ahead by a little bit. Oh, actually, they went around the back end. What?
Taking the position. Pincer maneuver. There's a couple of early picks, though, which even if they give ground and allow this to swap, they can group back as a 5 to eliminate Hypnos. And Hypnos will be accepting their fate right now, giving another chance here for Fable to be able to take this and look to the next.
I like the idea, but they had such an advantage when it came to the support ultimates. It was about like 30%. Now it's equal. So now you're fighting this next fight on even keels when you didn't really have to. I think they could have just let that one go, gone to the last point. You're up 2-0 already. Just fight here on this next flashpoint. But now they've given that ultimate economy over to Fable, and that might be something that comes back to bite them later on.
We'll see how impactful it's going to be. And it's those micro plays that make such a big difference in the bigger picture. 15 seconds before this flashpoint does become unlocked. A lot of chip damage across the center here. Genji's both playing very forward. Needs to be cautious of the damage. Disruptor shot zoning back ever so slightly as McMahon looks to dive in for some value. And here, the downpour comes in. Avery, I don't think could lock anybody down. Dear Girl actually looks for a flanking angle, has the downpour themselves. Could use that here. Gets extremely low, and Avery gets the elimination. No ability to escape, and I actually believe the jagged wall denied some of the incoming sightline for the heals.
Yeah, and while Avery didn't look the best in terms of the kill feed, it does a lot of zoning. You don't want to be anywhere near something like Downpour, and it moves all of those members away. It splits up Hypnos entirely, and Fable with just a singular ultimate are able to win that fight and start accruing that percentage, and now up to 30%. I mean, we have probably 2 fights left, and Hypnos have 5 ultimates coming up in this next fight. The Downpour is going to be the big one. Do they have an advantage in that regard?
Biggest thing is to actually lock someone down. Okay, that's a boop you're going to love to see when you have the numbers advantage, giving this up. Sude Rush dropped. Fiery puts in the sound barrier, but it's not going to be able to counteract the sheer force that's coming out from Hypnos with that Kitsune Rush.
Fantastic downpour from Dear Girl that completely just turned the fight on its head. Even though there was that pick at the start, that was completely turnable for Fable if they had had those key members, and both support ultimates are used for them. So now Bochi has such a huge advantage when it comes to that sound barrier. If Fable is going to use any of their DPS ultimates, it's going to get blanketed entirely. So if you're Fable, you're just trying your best to win this fight, potentially find Bochi before this fight ends up really getting scary, because then you can use both of your support ultimate or DPS ultimates and turn it back around.
You can see McMahon side angle with the blade. Nice switch up.
What a wall!
Block! Jagged comes in quickly to deny any sort of entry, and now the counter blade comes in. Reva has coverage from the sound barrier and actually still does enough damage onto the front line that Avery gets chased down and completely removed. There's one last opportunity, and Fable's got to regroup fast.
Hypnos are trying to find these staggered kills, but not going to be able to do so. Sound barrier was forced, though, so it is going to be a battle of overclocks that we see here between both of these teams. Avery so close towards that downpour. Again, the zoning potential of an ultimate like that, but Reva on the flank trying to find the straggler.
What a wall once again. Denying sightlines in the overclock, attempting to find an off angle, but can't do so. The overtime has been procced. Avery, half health already, goes into the dive, but nice swift step to get in.
Oh, what a
downpour.
downpour.
A huge pick comes in. The downpour guarantees at least one is isolated, but the rest now have to come back in. Avery is lost, and because there's no tank, that means that it's just the DPS and supports from Fable attempting to turn this back around, and there's no way to do so. Deergle on the hazard continues to be that dominant force in the front line and allows for this Hypnos team to still stay alive.
I mean, the DPS were dead, but Kiriko pretty good at dealing out that damage, as we saw from Siren at the very end there, and that was a great change of pace that we saw from this Hypnos team. I mean, based on those first 2 maps, I was thinking, okay, this is like a 3-0. Based, you know, these 2 maps weren't really that close. This looked like a completely different team when it's the mirror. I'd say that when it's the mirror, Hypnos has the advantage, especially with how we saw those first two maps go when it was more of like the Pharah, those extra little wrinkles that were kind of brought in, the D.Va, the Winston. But when it's mirror, mono, it looks fantastic for this Hypnos team. It's like a completely different team.
Yeah, Dear Girl, she really does face off against Avery well in a number of these. And some of those jagged walls, see, like right there even, just accidentally.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah, like unbelievable. Just huge plays. The positioning was so great, denying a lot of accessibility for Fable. It really can just change so much of the equation.
But the other thing I loved about what we saw from Hypnos there was their understanding of the macro, right? Because we saw there was that one moment where it was like they capped second point. First off, they capped second point with a fantastic, I'm going to use the meme, zoning Kitsune Rush, which is what it was.
Yeah.
They just zoned them off the point for the last 10%. And then they see that there's this, they see that Fable are kind of running away, and they're just like, let's chase. They force out Sound Barrier, disengage from the Sound Barrier fantastically, and then they know they have such a fantastic advantage to go back in, try and get that third point. The macro kind of stalled a little bit when they tried to do that, cheeky little play to Batcap, but for the most part, I mean, when it was just the macro understanding coming from this Hypnos team in the mirror, it just looked like it was completely night and day from what we saw in those first two maps.
And we'll be heading to a short break to give them a moment to evaluate their strengths and what they've been able to do to keep themselves going, but we'll be back in just a moment, friends, to see if they can continue to do that. Welcome back, my friends. We have seen a match go a little bit longer than expected. We thought it might be a 3-0. No. We're going to see it continue on. So this is a turning point, as we've mentioned. The lower bracket, Kenobi, this is a place where you really want to keep fighting, because the more you get closer to that first prize, you get that prize money of at least a minimum of 500. So we've seen Sarabossa now go in favor of Hypnos, and now we're going to see what Fable's looking to bring to the table for their map selection.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to see if it is going to be a very open map where it's like Pharah, Echo, maybe we can play not the mirror, because it feels like, again, what we saw with the first two maps, we didn't really see a lot of that Hazard mirror. It was the first map where we saw Hazard, but it was the Pharah from Fable that really made it difficult for Hypnos to pilot or to maneuver around. And then on the second map, it wasn't Hazard at all. It was the Diva versus the Winston. And then when we got to Sarabossa, where it's Hazard mirror, it looked like a completely different Hypnos team. And so if I'm Fable, I'm just thinking, I don't want to be anywhere near a map where we have to play the mirror.
Right? And again, like, it's almost kind of interesting just to hear you even say that, where we see all these teams really playing that so far, and then it's like, okay, so we'd love to do this and play this, but we don't want to, so...
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, like, where we could go. I mean, like Push and Clash are the options that we that we have left, I think. Colosseo, Esperanza, Hanaoka is another one, but all those scream to me like... all those scream to me, it's more mirror than anything. I mean, Colosseo would be like where I could potentially see a Pharah being played.
I was gonna say
Esperanza is another one, but I think if I'm Fable, and why they're probably taking so long is this is just like, can we make something different work somewhere? Because while it says 3-1 right there, Fable got punched in the mouth a little bit.
Yeah. No, agreed. And with this next selection, as we wait with bated breaths to see what that decision is, I would think Colosseo. I think, you know, with the map selections that you've presented, that it would lead into Colosseo. And because, I mean, even with the, I mean, there is still kind of like an enclosed area during that initial neutral. Like, once you break free of that and get out of that positioning, it's then going to, I think, pay more dividends. And even then, realistically, you could still find channels towards,
look at
like,
you.
That, look at me.
Look at
It's
you
because
color
we
casting
were
a little bit.
We were talking about food earlier, and I was just thinking about Colosseums, which is in Italy, which is good food, and that's how it really all came together. I'll be honest. So.
No. Take credit for that one. Take credit for that one. You're right. I mean, what you're saying, I think, in terms of like being
okay,
operating the. Yeah, someone click that because it's the only time I'm gonna compliment Rich for anything. I think you're right when it comes to like Colosseo and being able to. First point is a little bit difficult, but now that they've removed the glass, shout out to Spillo, it's easier. It's a lot easier to pilot a Pharah on this map, or an Echo. I think that's another thing we kind of have to talk about, where it's, if McMahon wants to play something that is a little bit more different in the air, you can play Pharah, you can play Echo. I think they're both pretty decent options here. But I think if you're Hypnos, you're like, okay, sweet, like, I think this is a map where we can play kind of a little bit more of our standard composition. It's not too bad in terms of being able to just maneuver around if there is going to be a Pharah, if there is going to be an Echo. I think Tracer versus Tracer is also another wrinkle that we have to really keep our eyes on, especially in that first engagement where you do have a little bit of that poking on the side lane going on. So we'll see exactly what happens here. I would be shocked if it's just a straight mirror, though.
I would also be shocked. And the other thing, too, is I think that with the Pharah play, or Echo, that we could see this, if that is what's going to come out of the gate, I think that Hypnos has to get the early advantage first and get that bot to maneuver through the tunnel near the Colosseum and then outwards, so they can at least give themselves that additional coverage to try and break out into the open. So there's a lot of like additional value that can be gained if they get the advantage first.
And I think that's a good point as well, because I think if you win that first fight, it's like, it's on Colosseo in particular, it's so hard to go back through the rest of the map because of the fact that you just have to like kind of grind your way through that middle ground. Even though, again, it is a little bit easier with the glass removed, it's still like a truck to get through a lot of the parts of this map, especially if you are, like, if you're a Pharah team and you're out in the open a little bit more, or you're not out in the open as much. But it looks like we are going to be seeing that same type of composition in terms of the mirror. So I'm a little bit shocked that we're going back into this, and this is kind of Fable saying, like, okay, forget that last map that we saw, Sarabossa. We have faith in ourselves. We're going to be playing this composition, and we'll see if they can make it work on a map like this where they picked it, so they probably are a little bit more comfortable.
We can even see Minami already trying to take this off angle with Avery instead of versing where what is positioned within the tunnel. So it's interesting to see the methodology behind how Fable want to take this engagement, looking for this, you know, side poke potential through the archway instead of taking it down the long choke position.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that they're really trying to get Minami to position to get that rail shot, but actually a very aggressive dive. Fiery is taken out. That means there's no speed and a little bit of healing that's lost. So now Hypnos has the advantage with the maneuverability. Avery getting taken down so low, and these health bars from Fable need to be topped up.
And this is that early advantage you really want to see from Hypnos. They can get this distance, they can push it through. Granted, they're taking a little bit of a step away from the bot for the barricade to move until they at least retreat back to get that movement. But again, getting out of this now, and again, seeing how they can get visibility on the Fable is key.
Avery with the wall, taking down a little bit low health. But there's what they need. Minami takes down Bochi. Lucio's eats rail shots, and that's exactly what happens here. Hypnos need to leave very quickly. They don't want to lose any more members, but Fable is going to try and take out as many as they can on the way out.
Well, there were a lot of resources used on that escape, so that gives so much more agency for Fable to not only surpass this checkpoint, but continue to push through to get outside of this channel.
See how Hypnos wants to re-engage here. There comes the dive in. Kitsune Rush already for Z-Panther.
Unleashed from the back, able to give that counter to Hypnos, leaning into it. You could see that Hypnos postured in to try and take advantage, but with that Kitsune Rush, it really starts to fully the plans. Reva goes down, so it's still the numbers advantage for Fable, and just starting to encapsulate those in this side wall. Hypnos now opening up into the backside. The jagged wall is placed to block some of the sight line, but this rotation around it and the disruptor shot causing so much problem. Downpour comes in. Beautiful sound barrier, though, to give protection into the back, but Mickman is down, so the numbers favor Hypnos as they utilize the sound barrier themselves, pressing forward. Minami now looking for these critical shots to try and slow this aggression forward, and it's not giving pay dirt.
But now there's no sound barrier for this. Overclock from What, and What is going to try and make something happen. Taken down low. Suzu used to keep them alive.
Woo! Beautiful coverage here from the support play as Dear Girl eliminates that Sojourn, firing in the back. Up top, Avery looking to hold. Jagged Wall bringing some denial to that sightline from a side, and Avery has to give space here, and Hypnos takes the advantage.
And we'll see Reva a little bit ahead in terms of that Dragon Blade. Mickman doesn't necessarily have theirs just yet, so this could be an aggressive push from Hypnos if they want to take this positioning.
That forced out a quick dash coming in. Mickman had to escape. Reva now down below. Maybe gonna get a cheeky blade underneath here.
Oh, they scouted.
Being patient. Okay. Well, now plans are foiled. Foiled plans. Has to leave.
But I mean, the Dragon Blade is still the big thing is going to be this downpour from Avery. Can Avery find an angle? But actually, it's an aggressive push from Hypnos.
Blade now gets two already with it as the Kitsune Rush holds down the choke point. So it was almost that these ultimates were really holding in two different channels, one near the bot and one towards the off angle, and it ends up paying so much here from Hypnos.
I would love to have supports that have confidence the way that Cyrena has confidence in Reva there to just use Kitsune Rush and get 2 kills with Dragon Blade. That completely turns the fight. And now you see Mickman going over to that Pharah. This is what Fable were so good at using beforehand, but you do have an infinite skybox to work with, but it is a little bit harder to maneuver it on something on a map like this instead of something like Lijiang Tower, but this is really where their bread is buttered for Fable, and they're going to try and get back into this map with this pick.
I mean, again, going into this confidently to try and force the mirror is something that I would guarantee they thought could work, but at this point now leaning into something that might be more favorable. You can see already Mickman just playing this off angle towards that center position as Z-Panther has the Kitsune Rush available, looking to potentially toss it down the choke, which will be done. So now aggressively, Avery is going to dive into the back onto what the chase continues to ensue. The downpour up the wall, lands it onto 2, and actually a third on the outside. What having to flee for their life as the jagged wall comes in as an anchor to deny the escape, and this is insult to injury. Avery has to be careful and does go down after the follow-through.
Really good understanding from Avery, where Avery saw everyone vault up, and it's like, this is the freest downpour I'm ever going to have in my life.
Yeah,
and it was just off of 2 singular ultimates, and now Fable still have a sound barrier to work with. They're going to have Minami with this overclock, and they're close to getting about ahead of Hypnos here.
Checkpoint is ideal to reach.
It's go time.
You see, though, the high ground still being placed. Overclock is active. Everyone from Fable just abandons ship. Nobody sticks around.
That was downpour committed.
What? Dear Girl goes for the ult and no one's there, and then now this rotation back to escape. Avery takes the advantage and gets rid of the Kiriko.
Yeah, Cyrena's not there, so that's a lot of healing lost, and Bochi might be forced to... I mean, actually, now you just can't sound barrier. If you sound barrier here, it's disastrous, and I think it was maybe just a little bit of miscommunication there. It is still potentially holdable for Hypnos, and they can contest, but just a little bit of misplay, I think.
Second wall. Ooh, nice displacement. McMahon down below saying, I'm going to get some gelato while I wait for a top-up on a heal.
I think if you're Fable, you can't really engage her. You have to be wary about those support ultimates because they are such a big deal. But McMahon's going to see... Oh, barrage!
Nice Suzu to mitigate some of the incoming... Oh, Ajax! Down there, Ajax! He doesn't get it off! They are unable to do anything about it. The Lucio play completely shut down. No ability to do anything, and that's a absolute feels bad moment. Just, she's gonna be regretting those moments right now that sound barrier didn't happen, and that's a checkpoint now reached.
That's a checkpoint in the lead for Fable, and actually Bochi's gonna go over to the Juno, so Juno was so prevalent in the last mid. I mean, still offers a lot in terms of that ultimate and the burst healing that you can give to the rest of the team, but you are losing that sound barrier, which is such a key defensive ult against what Fable is bringing to the table, and Avery, another downpour available for them, and has hit some big ones so far in the series. Can they get another?
Good rush from G Panther up the rampway, countered though by the bridge. Avery playing patiently.
What a shot.
No, Reva gets taken down by the rail. Beautiful shot, as you said. And now holds the corner, falls back for the moment, not quite yet needing to dive in until the ultimate lands. Downpour from Avery, locks down Dear Girl. She has nowhere to go, and now in the final home stretch here for Fable.
Z Panther, I mean, we saw that the Ana was really good, but Z Panther's Kiriko is also working. These Suzus are so perfectly timed, keeping Avery alive, keeping the supports alive, as we'll see Reva on the flank with the Pulse Bomb. Can Reva find any value here? I think they're scouted. They know they didn't. They know.
Heard the dash. Heard the dash. The recall is out. Now has to flee. Triple dash to get the health pack and abandon ship.
Yeah, there's no way you can fight a Pharah like that in the air, and if you're Fable, you're fine with just kind of having this little push and pull right now. You have such an advantage, and Hypnos are now going to try and engage and find some kills.
Ooh. Yeah, Z Panther got really low, separated onto the high ground. Everyone from Fable's just going to get chipped away. Great recovery here. Hypnos, but like you mentioned, has lost so much ground in comparison. Has to get almost double the distance and doesn't even yet have the checkpoint with 2 minutes left to go.
They do have some very key ultimates to kind of start some momentum here, as they are going to have to fight in this enclosed area. The big thing is going to be that sound barrier from Fiery. If there's a way for Hypnos to get that ultimate out quickly, or they just disengage from it and then go back in, that's really how they're going to be able to make this. But Reva, again, on the flank. Fable have done such a good job of scouting out this Tracer with the Pulse Bomb, but can Reva find an angle this time?
Reva's been sought out just because of audio cues.
They keep looking, you can see.
But if they can, yeah, you can see that camera swivel from Nick. Shots fired down the choke, still keeping a watchful eye on the flank to communicate that with the rest of the team as things get dangerous. Now, you've got the ultimate. Orbital Ray active, torpedoes up top, health values are low, but everyone from Fable is able to give ground here because they still have the advantage. Dropping overclock now, the dive comes in. Oh, is there a way to survive through it? Sound barrier gives coverage. McMahon is the only one that doesn't have it, so they are going to use that rocket barrage to also funnel some damage down the choke. Overclock getting one before it does dissipate, and this is now Fable taking advantage. 60 seconds to go, and it's all down to Hypnos now trying to survive for the rest of this time.
And I'm just loving the patience from Fable here. They know that this Tracer is going to be the thing that could completely turn a fight inside out, and they're scouting, the positioning. It's also perfectly played, and they know that eventually Hypnos are going to have to start moving the cart because of the lead that Fable have, and now, Rich, with only a minute left, Hypnos have to be perfect from here on out.
And Rave, oh no, and Rave is going to swap to the bar to try and go toe-to-toe, but McMahon gets the early advantage onto what?
And I mean, that's a disaster right there. I mean, Rave, it feels like they're kind of just like holding up the white flag almost, where they're like, okay, we have to Faramir here, and that's, if you're Fable, you're like, thank you very much, we'll totally take a Faramir.
Just getting pummeled a little bit there. Had to use the Suzu for themselves before looking to re-engage onto this. 20 seconds now to go. Pushing back into the neutral position. Fable giving so much space, except for this side angle from Avery, keeping a watchful eye and tabs on where this positioning is. Jagged Wall blocks the side angle. Overclock is active. Shots down the choke, but Avery is going to give that space. Tucked to the wall. Fiery goes down. Beautiful torpedo comes in from the back line. And now there is an opportunity. Hypnos back in the driver's seat for the moment. There is a couple of pickups. Both supports are down.
Yeah, and one of the big things here is that there is no checkpoint, so that means the bot's going to stop and initiate the bus crash, and then it's going to take more time off the clock. They don't really have a way back into this one. Yes, Cyrina's going to be there on the Kiriko to dash back, but you can look at Bochi trying desperately to get back to this point.
That's quite a bit of distance still to cover. What's going to go back and actually give some assistance off screen, closing the gap, so now they are united. Rainbow's top. Mirage's key has to land. The rocket gets two! Gets three! Three direct rockets onto this with the rockets raining overhead. There is a counter though. Big pickup by the shots from the hit scan. Fable with the Kitsune Rush. Z-Panther gives the extra damage, but Fable not out of this just yet. Hypnos does have Deer Girl. They need to keep this into the overtime. Fiery escaping for their life, and Z-Panther up on the bridge to give the assistance.
What a play from Reva there with that, just three tapping the Pharah out of the air. McMahon though back, Barrage at the ready. Deer Girl in this enclosed area on this lane is going to have such a good opportunity, but Cyrina's down!
Shot! Oh no, the Disruptor shot starts to cause some chip damage, and then everyone collapses in. McMahon with that beautiful rocket barrage in conjunction to the overclock will annihilate Hypnos on their final attempt. Fable will move on with a 3-1 score, and we say fond farewells to Hypnos.
Yeah, Hypnos put up a great fight. Just unfortunately, the Pharah from McMahon too much for this team to deal with, and I think this was just a very interesting series from the perspective of Fable, because these first two maps were so incredibly played, and even the back end of this one, that third map was such a weird anomaly when they just had to kind of play the mirror. You even saw it in this map as well, where when it was the mirror matchup with the Genji instead of something like the Pharah, it felt like they were on the back foot a little bit, but this Pharah play needs to be figured out by some of these other teams, because if not, I'd be scared to face up against this Fable in the lower bracket.
Absolutely scary. Like, first of all, and we talked about it too, like historically, where when you think about this Pharah, do you take the Pharah play, do you focus on the ground game and attempt to try and gain the advantage there before moving in? So there's all these different methodologies behind how to handle it, but it's who's going to be the one to actually be able to find the real answer in this equation.
And I think it's so weird because it feels like hit scan's not very fantastic right now either. Like, at least compared to where we were. I mean, even in the Magma meta, it wasn't like fantastic. I think this is just it's a very interesting place to be, especially with, I think, Hazard being so popular, is that Hazard throws out a lot of damage on these hit scans. And hit scans, like, I mean, Cassidy has some defensive ability from, in terms of like the role. You have Ashe with Coach Gun and things like that, but I think with where the meta is, it feels like it's a little bit hard to squeeze in a hit scan just to deal with the Pharah. I think it's possible, and I think that there are ways potentially to deal with Pharah that aren't necessarily just pick a hit scan and then figure it out that way. I think a lot of it comes down to rotations, a lot of it comes down to cooldown management and just negating the Pharah as much as you can that way. But beyond that, it will be interesting to see how teams are going to figure out a way to deal with this, because it does feel, especially with how well Fable is played, does feel like it needs to be dealt with in some regard.
Yeah, absolutely, and going to allow Fable to continue moving through this lower bracket to see if there is an attempt to fight off against those in that upper bracket. So realistically, I'm glad we get to see Pharah. It's a little bit outside of what we've been seeing a lot of. So we're going to head to a short break, though, before diving into some more conversation and potentially going to be having an interview, but we'll be heading for sure into another match, which, again, in that upper bracket, so don't go anywhere, friends, because either way, we're going to have a good time. Hello and welcome back, my friends. Like I mentioned, we were either going to go to an interview or the next match, but we're going to give you more time to get your rewards, as we'll be having an interview. But first, we can talk a little bit more, like we mentioned, about the replays that we've got here to show you, but also just, again, the way that we saw Fable be so successful.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's only right that it starts off with a Pharah replay, and it'll probably end on a Pharah replay as well. But yeah, I think the story was a lot of this kind of Pharah composition that we saw, and how it differed from the mirror play that we saw coming in from Hypnos, who seemed like they were very good on that, but whenever it was something changed over and a new little wrinkle when in terms of compositions, whether it's tanks or anything like that, it felt like that's really where Fable shone.
Well, and even like we're going to be talking about the interview, like the success that's working here. It's just also the amount of value that's being brought in from this support line to give like enabling an agency to the DPS and Avery really as a unit to gain and take so much space and gain so much value.
Yeah, and I think it was just a wholehearted team effort, right? While we do talk a lot about the Pharah and how much value that got, it felt like just overall, the team is incredibly well-known. They know how to play around this little wrinkle that they have in terms of bringing out the Pharah, in terms of bringing out some of these other different compositions.
Oh, I'm just looking at this last moment where you hit the rocket barrage. I was looking for that 3-tap, but I know that that's the other side of it. But again, we have the opportunity now to speak with our lovely, lovely interview, and it's going to be from Fable. We've got Minami. How are you doing, my friend?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm happy about the win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were just seeing some great replays and, you know, some excellent performance from you and everyone else on the team. So, I mean, realistically, we're super excited to see you continue to move through this lower bracket. And how are you, like, feeling about the way that the team was playing going into the matches for tonight?
I think I felt that we played pretty good. The first two maps were pretty dominant from us. I feel like we had a little bit of a struggle on the third map, on Surabasa. But I think the first very, very strong for us, and it plays really well towards our team play. So I think that once we swap to the Pharah, I think the game was pretty much won.
Okay, so walk me through a little bit about, because those first two maps were so dominant. It felt like there was really not anything you guys could do wrong in that or y'all could do wrong in that regard. And then now you come over to the third map, and the third map looks completely different, and it feels like y'all are on the opposite side of being walled a little bit. So was there anyone, or is there anyone in that team who really keeps all of you, you know, even keeled after a bad map like that, and can kind of recombobulate into just like being comfortable?
I'd say everybody has a pretty good mental, but obviously I think our coach and especially Avery are the anchor of the team. I think obviously I'm pretty new to the team, but I think like Avery is a very, very big part of the team mental, and like they're pretty much like the team leader, I would say. So they're the one that keeps us like, you know, pretty stable, I guess.
No, that's great to hear, and I mean, just getting that insight too. I mean, even from us talking about Avery from the collegiate aspect of it, I could see, you know, that carrying over into this. So, tell us a little bit about, because it's the DPS side of things, where you had this adjustment with the composition to where it's from the Pharah, then trying to, you know, work when it came to Route 66 back away from the Pharah. You really started to step up when it came to the Sojourn and really getting a lot of those shots like alongside it. What's the communication like between you and you know, and your partner DPS that allows the synergy between the two and making kind of that judgment call?
Well, I think it's pretty much just like we both know our roles in this comp. I feel like Hitscan has to take like a little bit of a step back in this meta, especially because Hazard is just so dominant. I feel like it's not like old metas before, where Soj was like pretty much like the superstar and like you will always get the highlight plays and stuff like that. I think Soj has taken more of a supportive role this meta, while you let like your other flex CPS and your Hazard shine. So I think us knowing like how to play to those strengths is like what, you know, what makes like our team play pretty good. I think everybody like knows their roles, and I feel like Migman is very like vocal on what they want to do, and we just follow like what they say now.
So I have a question kind of still about the DPS aspect. What's it like playing with Z Panther and Fiery? Because it feels like you're almost unkillable a lot of the time, and the supports are really good at saving you. There were a lot of times where Fire just comes out of nowhere and just hits someone with a boop and you survive. Does it like feel just almost like you're a god essentially, where I have so much trust in my supports to be able to help me, and I can play a little bit more aggressively, you know, on that knife's edge because I trust them so much?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think Fiery and Sea Panther are a very, very solid backline. I not only like are they good at like supporting, but you can trust on them to clutch whenever like you're like 1 down or 2 down. They're very, very like capable mechanically. And obviously like I've developed like pretty good synergy with Fiery, so I just trust that she's like with me whenever I want to go to like the kind of angle or something like that. You know? So yeah, I would say that I feel pretty invincible with Dynamis my bad lane.
Yeah,
It looked like
absolutely.
it.
I mean,
It looked like it a lot of the
it
time.
shows. It very much shows, and we're hoping to continue see this type of dominance. And again, even both myself and Kenobi really recognizing that this Pharah is like a unique aspect that we're seeing that is becoming very successful, and looking to see that continue to carry on. But also just the methodology behind when you don't have the Pharah, how you and your DPS along with the rest of the synergy of your team continue to work. So we really appreciate the time to chit chat with you and be able
Thank you
to
very
get
much.
a little bit more of that insight on the back end of it. And we're really looking forward to see the team continue to perform moving forward. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, goodness. Kenobi. So, again, it kind of ties back a little bit with the conversation you mentioned about the role that the DPS as the hit scan is playing. And it was great to kind of get that insight, you know, even further, just validate the actual cogwheel within the entire mechanism and what it plays to.
It was very interesting to hear that Sojourn's played as a support. Like, I didn't think she'd say that, but it kind of makes sense with how Sojourn operates a little bit. It's not the same pop-up. There are those pop-up moments still. You can still clutch and things like that, but with Hazard and how, I don't want to say oppressive, but how strong Hazard seems to be, I think that that's really going to be like the flex DPS shining, as Minimi said, and the Sojourn taking more of a little bit of a backseat role.
Yeah, taking a little bit of a backseat indeed, talking about the strengths of the Hazard, but you know what we should really talk about? Strengths of Calling All Hero merch. I guarantee you that if you were to get the Calling All Heroes merch right here, you'd feel a lot stronger. I really networked into that one, didn't I?
You really segued really good into that one.
I'm so glad you picked up what I was putting down. But yes, if you'd like, make sure to get your phone out. Hit that QR code reader, go with that barcode, go to the website, making some new purchases here for Calling All merch again. I know even CV was ranting and raving about I'll have to get the one for like my gym workout days when I go and at the gym and start putting in some
that's a
extra
good
workout
call.
days. I know, right? It's
That's
like
a good call. That's a good call.
It's an absolutely good one. But yes, needing to make sure to do that, and you can get some Calling All Heroes merch of your own. But I mean, realistically, Kenobi, if most of the viewers already don't have something for how long it's been going on, then you're just kind of like out of the times. Like you're not where you're
want
not
the hat.
having the item.
I want the hat.
Right?
I want the hat really
right?
bad.
See, here's my thing: is I never know whether or not I feel cooler if I have the hat on normally or like
that's a hat that I
backwards,
can
where
that's a
it's
hat
like-
that I can see myself walking around New England with like an iced latte or an iced Dunkin' coffee in the middle of December with. Like that's the vibes I'm feeling from that one. So I make sure to scan that QR code. It's not there anymore, but like clips exist and the VOD exists. So make sure that you're getting your call merch because it's a great initiative and we want to support it as much as we can.
Absolutely. And for us so far, we've got this first match completed, as now we're going to be heading into our next, but we're going to be taking a short break before doing so don't go anywhere, and we'll see you on the other side. We're back, friends. We've got more action and more excitement, and even greater drops, because the longer you're here, the more stuff you get, and the longer you're here, the more excitement that happens. And then that's just us telling you what's going on. So yes, we've got now our second match of 3 today. We've already had a good one as we get to take a look here at what we're gonna have in the bracket moving forward. We get to talk about the upper portion, which is our first semi-final. Kenobi.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see, again, we talked about it a little bit at the start of the broadcast, but if you weren't here, looking at all these quarterfinal matchups, I love how close they were. You know, there are teams that have lost. There's no 3-0s, and that's awesome to me. You see in that lower side, we have Valentine and Shikigami 3-2. Queen's Gambit getting upset by Yes 3-2. And then on the top side, Nightmare losing a map. EXO as Thought losing a map. Like, this is, I'm really excited for the semifinals as we go here in the upper bracket. All these teams do have that ability to get that secondary life as we go into that lower side, but this is a matchup that we saw before back in Major 3, Rich, I believe it was, and while the meta was different, it was a pretty convincing 3-0 for Nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the biggest things I'm really most excited about, because the Hazard has done quite a bit to shake things up. Granted, when we at least looked at these two facing off before, and as you mentioned, Nightmare Eclipse really having the advantage, there are still, I think, moments that allowed EXO to have some kind of advantages, but more often than not, I think it's just they always felt like they were on the back foot. They never could really gain the early initiative on an engagement, and hopefully with these adjustments and the methodology behind having Hazard in the mix, that could be a significant change up in the way that they play and competing against how Nightmare is going to.
Yeah, the dynamics changed because that old composition with the Mago was like super macro dependent, and like macro still does matter a little bit in terms of, you know, using ultimates effectively and all that. It's always going to matter, but it's not, I don't think, going to matter as necessarily as much as it was where it's like, okay, we have to use these 3 alts in a cycle. If we don't have this alt, no Juno alt, you know, yada yada yada, how that Mago meta ended up working. This one, it feels like it's a little bit more open, a little bit more dynamic. We're seeing flex supports be very important in terms of that ability to pop off. Sojourn's taking a little bit of a back seat like we heard a little bit earlier, and I think that tank play, the Hazard, is going to be, again, the really key thing to be looking out for, because if you have a Hazard that's kind of running the lobby, it's very difficult for the enemy team to get some footholds.
And we can take a look now at EXO Azathoth's roster as we go into this. Kindred, again, she's been playing so well on this tank role and being such a force to be reckoned with up front, and getting the assistance from the supports was already something I think that was really well done by this group, but ever so more important now, especially with bringing in that Hazard and being a lot more relevant. I would be really curious to see how much more elevated that type of playstyle can be, because of how much contribution the supports were playing to give agency to this team, even though they were still behind the 8 ball.
And I think we remember Kindred back, me and you, when we were casting contenders. She's Reinhardt Queen, from what I remember. I don't think we'll be seeing a lot of that. And Jeremy, it'll be interesting, because I think Jeremy was one of the players in Major 3 who was very adept at Pharah, from what I remember. So I think that that is, again, something to very much keep an eye on, especially if Pharah's kind of creeping up in priority, if teams don't want to be opting in for just this kind of mirror situation. But we look at Nightmare Eclipse as our next team here. One of the favorites, I would say, in terms of this tournament. Players that we're all familiar with, Rich, in terms of looking at collegiate as well. Bun is someone who I am going to be looking out for incredibly in this meta, particularly because of the fact that Genji is so prominent. And she is a very, very good Genji. Like, even back in contenders, like, I think Bun was phenomenal. So I think that this team, from the DPS perspective, looks fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to specifically like that Genji synergy you were talking about, and the methodology behind how it synergizes with the Hazard, is, I think, even more emphasis in why we want to see that type of Genji play.
Can I get a howl from you, Rich? Just like a...
Howl!
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Who let the dogs out? Hoot, 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 hoot. And then we go to like analog sound. I'm hoping that I didn't like kill everybody with my howl. So.
No, we like, I mean, like, we have to meow at least once, I feel like, on this broadcast. Maybe later.
Yeah.
We'll
probably later.
We already howled.
We want to space it out.
Yeah, we got to space it. We got to space it out. We don't want to blast the audience with too much of that just immediately, as we do have our first control map, so we can stop making fools of ourselves and talk about Samoa as where we're going.
Yeah, there's no wolves here when it comes to this.
Not in this climate. Not in this
climate. Not at all. Maybe we'll find. Actually, what would be? What if like cockatoos or
like
whatever,
or
like birds, like or if you had like, you know, some like well, because there's like bananas and stuff here, so I'm thinking maybe like, well,
A macaw?
Are monkeys in like more of like in this tropical climate? I don't think so.
I think. Well,
Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. We're not zoologists.
No, we
or
are not.
people of knowledge in animal.
we're not Bear
information.
Grylls. We're not Bear Grylls.
Yeah. No. But I would definitely think some sort of bird with a very like fluorescent colored beak.
You're getting to be looking like Bear Grylls with the way I've seen you put on like 70 pounds of muscles, to be honest.
Okay, 70 pounds is a little excessive. I dropped that much weight. I think I put like 10 on. Because could you, if I put on 70 pounds of muscle, I would probably look like Hazard.
I don't know. Chat, go check out @RichRad Live and tell me that there isn't
goodness.
70 extra pounds of lean, thick muscle on this man. Okay.
This is getting really awkward. I love you, but my goodness, if anybody can see my cam, I'd be blushing right now.
I gotta gas up my co-caster, obviously.
All right. Well, what we're gonna be talking about is, there are dragon eggs in this place.
I also did not know there were dragon eggs here.
Obs are on fire right now, literally. I mean, as we go over lava, so that's pretty ironic that I meant to do that. But yeah, dragon egg. Ooh, what kind of dragon do you think it'd be? Sorry, deviating away. My pea brain is just rolling down the mountainside at the moment, so we're gonna let that just.
Well, it'd be like a dragon from WoW, probably.
Probably something like what's the purple
Well, it'd
one
be a
that
red
everybody played
dragon,
in
so
classic?
it'd be-
I just went. That's true.
It'd be
it'd be Alex Straza.
Yeah.
Alex Straza,
Probably,
yeah.
something like that.
Okay.
Anyway, we're going to start talking about Overwatch at some point, and it looks like we are going to be seeing the standard composition. I wonder if Kindred does roll out on this. So we're seeing a return to the Mauga meta, and I wonder if Nightmare is even aware that this is a possibility here.
All right. And now we're going to try and see this use of the Malga meta that we saw come back for a second lease on life. And now you've got Vittori getting hacked at the moment, but that's an instant takedown. Peace quickly makes minced meat of this Sombra play and forces back Exo Azathoth.
I mean, I talked about the Genjis, and someone else who is very good at Genji that you and I are very familiar with is Peace. Peace is a fantastic Genji, I think on Brian Strand College, I believe, and was one of the reasons that during collegiate, Brian Strand was able to make a top 4 push, so really be on the lookout for this Genji to pop off, especially when there's not a lot of counters on the other side. You don't have to worry about another Genji.
Now still focusing on Kindred rotating around, back onto the point. Again, you see this takedown again. Peace hyper-focused on the Sombra, really not giving much value to what can be brought with these hacks, or even just these backline harassing plays.
See the engagement coming in from the Mauga here, but Hittori will be able to stay alive just enough, but the positioning was taken from Exo there.
That's so much damage with this Kindred play. Now, moving forward, Hittori gets a nice pickup onto Jeremy, who we were heavily talking about from the Genji, but don't see it here this moment. As Kindred, still tucked away in the corner, finally goes down. Great elimination coming in from Eclipse. They have lost the point for the time being, and Exo is at least getting some percentage to deny the gain from Nightmare Eclipse.
They were able to take control of that point, and I mean, really for Exo, it is going to kind of be the same blueprint that we saw in the last meta, where it's very ultimate dependent. Right? You don't have something like the Juno, though. You have to have a little bit more of that sustainability and AoE healing with this Lucio, with also this Kiriko. As Pauline gets taken down very low, we'll be able to survive back up and come back with Kitsune Rush.
Hittori now in a flanking position. Great hack, instantly denying value from Hittori's flanking dive. Peace now with the blade brought out, but there is a sound barrier. You still lose one early, but that downpour is going to be a little detrimental when you lock everyone that's in its gaze into the specific position, and unfortunately, Kindred's just going to jump off and say, "Pawn farewell, let's go again."
Yeah, 75% up and ticking right now for Nightmare Eclipse. A lot of ultimates used in that last fight, but we do have 2 very key DPS ults coming out from Exo. You have the EMP and you have the Death Blossom, but already a flanking overclock from Wisps, and it takes down Kuna before the sound barrier is even available.
And again, when you're in these final percentages and catch the enemy off guard like this, Exo Azathoth is just attempting to scramble, and even if they swap it over, which they have now, there's not a full group to really come back to actually have a worthwhile engagement. The EMP, though, actually does hit 3. Peace goes down. Nightmare Eclipse gonna force themselves to regroup and try and compete against this. Exo Azathoth still doing a decent job keeping this contested. Has the cage to lock down 2 in the corner for the time being, and the Death Blossom from Jeremy might actually come in and be enough and force back Oh, but they've swapped it into the
I don't know. I don't think they have the damage, Rich. I think that this is going to be a flip coming in from Nightmare.
Oh, the elimination. Great Suzu to keep Nightmare topped up and ready to go. Kitsune Rush across the center. That should be game over on this round, and it will be, as that is the first round taken for Nightmare Eclipse.
And I think what you saw there was incredibly good target selection coming in from Nightmare, where it's like they know that Sombra is going to be the thing that wins or loses it for the other side on EXO, because EXO's composition is so based around just hacking Hitori and making sure Hitori isn't able to play the game. So if you're just killing the Sombra on cooldown, you're not farming up towards EMP. And you saw, I mean, there was one EMP, it got 4, managed to take down a kill, but again, that composition is so ultimate heavy, reliant in cycling those ultimates effectively, that it just didn't end up working. And now EXO Azeroth are going to be going over to much more of a standard composition here. Jeremy on that fair, it was something that was really impactful back in Major 3. Can it get the same amount of value here as we go on to this next submap?
I feel like it can. I mean, if anything, we know for sure that the Pharah can bring a lot of value from our previous series. We'll see if Jeremy is able to step up to the plate. Shots already fired on that flanking angle to see if there's any sort of chip damage that can be gained. Aggression up top from Hitori. Has to fall back. Peace gets one again.
Oh,
Peace on
Peace.
multiple occasions has now found early value in these fights. Nightmare Eclipse has just consistently taken early advantage because of what Peace brings to the table.
I mean, you can screen cap that, you know, kill feed where it's Kuna getting killed by Peace on the Genji, and that's like the entirety of the story of the map so far. Peace has been a nightmare to deal with, no pun intended, and now EXO Azeroth again. I mean, the fact that this Pharah can't just like, the reason that you play Pharah here is you want to play much more of a slow pace, right? You want to be able to farm up, you want to be able to poke, but Peace and Nightmare are just saying, we're not going to let you. We're going to be aggressive. We're not going to let you sit and spam to your heart's content, and we're going to be the aggressors, and if you don't take me down on this Genji, I'm going to slice and dice your backline.
You can see this rotation again. He's already on the flank going in lightning fast. The disruption blocked for the moment. Nice jagged wall to mitigate some of the sight lines, but again, with the mobility that Peace brings to this on this Genji makes it so much more challenging. That's a good lead, but Jeremy is brought down by Peace. Peace is just having a field day on this Genji.
Yeah, there's nothing to deal with Peace right now. I mean, it can't be Kuna, it can't be Jeremy, and Jeremy's just going to go over to Genji because you cannot let Peace sit on this Genji alone. Kindra's going to end up going down and 60% up and ticking for Nightmare Eclipse here. Ultimate's up the wazoo for them. It's going to be so hard for EXO Azeroth to get in here with the pace that's being set. Kuna's going to go down and... Oh, this feels mean.
Oh my, yep.
We're touching spawn doors. We're touching spawn doors.
Downpour into the spawn, and we're gonna lock you down inside as there is some chip damage coming out from the spawn position. 20% to go now. Last fight opportunity here for EXO Azeroth, and they really only have the support ultimates and gonna have Kuna if the damage can come through.
And I bet Nightmare are gonna go aggressive here. They're gonna throw out the first Kitsune rush. They're gonna try and just force EXO to play completely reactive in this last one.
Instantly over the point. Rotation, though, from Nightmare Eclipse. Gonna now enter in moments later with their own sound barrier to give some coverage onto Wisps, looking for the shots in the overclock. Peace now comes in with the blade again. This is all Peace all day and is really shutting down EXO Azeroth with the great accompaniment with the rest of the squad. A team kill, and that is a easy victory here from Nightmare Eclipse.
Very convincing as well, coming out from this entire Nightmare Eclipse team. And it felt like the second this map started, we saw Peace insta-kill the Sojourn, and from then it was just lights out in the entirety of Nightmare. They played so well. I love the other decision-making where they would always send the Lucio with Peace. So Peace really just was invincible a lot of the time, because even if you like throw some damage down, you have a Lucio there to peel for you. If you want to re-dive onto the Genji, you have Deflect, you have Boop. It's so hard to take that Genji out, and when it plays kind of like this off-tank, and when you have the lethality that Peace brings to the table, it's even harder, because you are always, it feels like, on the back foot if you're trading 1 for 2. Like, it just feels really bad in those scenarios, and there were a lot of times where Peace is just going in the back, getting 2 kills, and then the fight's over.
Well, and this is kind of the thing that I mentioned before we really went into this series specifically, where last time that they were against one another, it was always feeling that so Azeroth was on the back foot, and it seems like these moments are kind of occurring again, where Nightmare Eclipse is always getting the early advantage. Peace is leading the way, getting these picks early, or finding an off angle that makes Exo Azeroth have to be so reactive in the moment that they're not being as proactive. And it's just one of those things that they're going to have to really look internally now, especially as we deviate away from control, what that answer is going to look like.
Yeah, because it always feels the worst to be reactive, right? In Overwatch, whenever you're like the one who's going first, whenever you're the one who's initiating, it always feels the best. And Peace was doing a lot of that, right? Even when it was against that Maug composition where you could potentially get caught off guard and just get scared and spook like a deer in headlights, they just immediately they're like, okay, we're gonna kill Sombra every fight, and you don't get to play your game. And they played their game the entirety of the way through. And I think if you're Exo thought they're going to go to Esperance, I think you have to probably try and force them off of just a complete mirror type of matchup. I think, which would be hard, because I think if Peace could also play Pharah. Peace is very good at Pharah. So I think that this is about, in the future of the series, it's about mitigating Peace in some way or form, because it cannot continue to be like this throughout the entirety of the series. This is going to be a quick 3-0, and chat's going to be sad because they're not getting as many drops as they would have liked.
I know, right? I mean, chat, come on, start chanting here. We need you to try and... I mean, I'm not trying to get biased or anything, but it's just like, yeah, like,
but
wish for the other team so you can get your goals.
Yeah, because casters love nothing more than having a series on our hands. And if it's a 2-0 in like 5 minutes, that's going to be hard to do.
I mean, to be fair, I haven't heard you in a while say, oh, we have a series on our hands. Like, you saying that right now...
I adamantly try to not do it.
I know, but it's so great when you say it, because for me, it's just like, it's basically like flipping the switch where I'm just like, oh, let's go.
I'll say it when it really calls for it. When it's like, when we really have a series on our hands, then I'll say it.
Just hearing you say it though, even now saying that
I could hear your smile grow. You were like the Grinch in the Christmas movie when you just smile when I said we have a series on our hands.
And my heart grows 3 times bigger. Yeah, and it's already big anyway.
Like
so
your
it's
muscles.
Just gonna... Oh, again with this?
I'll get there one day. I'm just jealous.
Hey, it's okay, bro. I'm here. I'm in your corner. One of these days we'll have to just like have a meetup. We'll just have a gym day and we'll be like, yeah! As we're going to be hopping into this next map, Push is where we go. Esperanza, we will see what the composition has in store for us, which again, like you mentioned, the Pharah, really something on the table here. And Peace, I would not be surprised if we again see the Genji, because there's no real need to change it. If there's something that needs to be done, it has to be from Exo Azeroth. And Jeremy already hovering over it to lean into this first, and I think doing so out the gate is going to give much more benefit to them to try and compete against this. But then in doing so, even though we had from the interview that, you know, the Sojourn is kind of like not as, like, let's say the leading character in this moment, I still think Wisp is going to have a lot on their hands to take care of Jeremy.
The thing is, you do have an infinite skybox to play with Jeremy, right? So you do have that ability to really let the Pharah cook in the air. The problem is that if Nightmare doesn't allow you to do that, right? You want to play a bit slower of the place. You want to poke out when you're on something like this Pharah, but we've seen Nightmare be very aggressive with these flanks like they're doing now. And look at all the pressure they're just putting onto Jeremy, not even securing the kill. And they might actually... Jeremy is back to spawn. All the way back to spawn with this Genji and this Lucio. And now it's a... I mean, yeah, on the other side it's a little bit scary, but look at how much... It's like a horror game.
They're playing a side game outside of the objective game. Like, this is completely wild to see how separated that pair was able to force away Jeremy. The distance was able to be gained at first with Exo Azeroth because the numbers advantage was in favor of them. But now, having to come back to point and in this neutral, you can see Peace looking for an off angle, sticking close and utilizing this wall climb to get that high ground position. And you can also see now that Jeremy is playing a lot more close together with the team.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you have to do. I think you need to be near your supports, and Wisp is taken down, but Hittori trades it back for Kuna. Hittori getting taken down low, but oh my god, Nightmare coming in with these clutch kills.
Yeah, absolutely following any sort of advantage that's been gained early by Jeremy onto Hittori, so the numbers are very few here for Exo Azeroth. Jeremy really just still looking to try and put in some pressure, but like you said, there's nothing to give them sustainability, and Z's comes in now with a 2-piece at the end.
But it feels like if you're Jeremy and you have to play like hugging your supports like you're never going to see them again, that's not where you want to be as Pharah. You don't want to
No.
be kind of just on the ground shooting like a Pharah like that. You want to be up in the air, but you can't because of the amount of pressure that Nightmare Eclipse is putting out. And I'm loving the decision making and the placement that we're seeing from Nightmare Eclipse. And now they have a huge advantage with Kitsune Rush. They can be aggressive if they want to and just get into that back line.
Oh, Kuna is getting completely jumped on and has brought out of this fight instantaneously.
This dive it's crisp and clean like a freshly opened bag of Lay's potato chips. Like every time they are making a dive, it looks so calm, cool, and collected. They're using their cooldowns so effectively, baiting out the ones from EXO as well. You saw the slide, and you saw Hitori put a perfect wall just to make sure the slide got absolutely nothing. They take down the Sojourn, and then it's just free from there on a 5v4. Second point is going to be capped here for Nightmare Eclipse, and they are looking like they have their pedal to the metal, and they are not stopping.
Yo, I really want. You do see a Kitsune Rush coming to the table. That's what we want. As you can see, it gives much advantage here to Nightmare Eclipse, but Hitori's been brought down, and Z's actually still going to get 2. So even though it was Hitori eliminated on the tank line, everyone else is still going to get the benefit. Nightmare Eclipse, despite having no tank, is able to continue dominating.
Z gets 3 headshots with the kunai, and that's both support ultimates used for EXO. Ultimate as well with the barrage used, and this is really starting to fall apart for EXO. It feels like they do not have a grasp on this whatsoever. No foothold. DPS ultimates and tank ultimate available for Nightmare Eclipse. We'll see if Kuna can make a miracle happen with an overclock on the other side.
Wisps also with an overclock. Seeing when the time to strike, as there is a quick shot and a Hitori follow-up. Just the calling and the timing here. There's a cage to lock down multiple players from Nightmare Eclipse because they played forward. But unfortunately, despite them being locked in the cage, at this point, it's just a rabbit in a den of lions.
I mean, those picks are gonna matter because of the fact that now with the respawns, EXO should be able to get back out here and stay alive. Nenwai goes down. That means Nightmare Eclipse is gonna have to retreat. Wait! Oh my god, Peace almost got that kill. That would have been filth, but
Jeremy says, no, you ain't getting me today, fam.
Push in the face, and finally EXO can breathe because it feels like they have been on the back foot the entirety of the map so far. They can start getting this Pharah in the air, getting some more potential to get kills. They do have to be worried about this Dragon Blade from Peace, who can make Dragon Blade look very good, but Hitori making something happen with these movements on the roof. Swifty with it. Woo!
Okay. This just makes me realize that I could never be a hazard tank in a competition because that was just clean. A deflect onto Kuna with the blade onto. This is just so dominant from Peace.
Deflected rail shot, and I mean the bot was moving the entire time. I guess there's that for EXO as thought, but Nightmare Eclipse seems like they are poised to probably cap the map at this point with how well it's been going for them. And the advantage that they have a Kitsune Rush to work with as well as they go forward, way ahead of EXO Azthoth here, and we'll see if EXO Azthoth can make something happen in this neutral fight, maybe find a bit of an over-aggressive positioning like we see from Peace, but gets out at like 1 health. Oh my lord.
Talk about thread the needle. You see this reposition on the angle. The Kitsune Rush, nice swift step forward, actually bamboozles the positioning from EXO Azathoth. They can't collapse onto Z's, and everyone else has to just go into this front line, and Peace just once again resetting for days and taking names.
Yeah, we had in our interview talked about what it's like to have supports that make you feel invincible. This is probably what it feels like also between Z and Nenwai. The amount of just ability to clutch out some of these fights with just incredibly well-placed healing cooldowns is impeccable, as Jeremy looking for a flank here. Barrage at the ready. But it's Hitori playing a little bit of anti-air Pharah.
You got that.
Oh my god, no way.
Oh no, Jeremy. And then Peace dives in from the side. They're just playing with Jeremy. They know.
Oh, what a
Suzu! Oh my. Okay, so Jeremy right now, we talked about how significant Jeremy can be on this Pharah. And how is it that people can handle it? This is the methodology to handle the Pharah, because Jeremy, if not handled in this way, I think this would go a very different way.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it back in Major 3 as there's a pick onto Unlucky Main. Overclock at the ready. Another one from Wisps. A third from Wisp. Widowmaker's not going to save you from this one, and Nightmare Eclipse are going to full cap. Absurd performance from everyone on that team during that map.
You just see Wisps looking at those pins down the bowling alley and just goes in for a strike. We'll get the play of the game moment as well. Just everything about this team right now is just so dominant. And that's actually the highlight here. Peak de la Resistance coming out from Wisp.
I mean, just...
Even
it's so hard.
At the end.
I can't imagine what it's like to play. I mean, I've been in ranked, so I know what it's like to play against people who are better than me. But like, that was so incredibly like not close. I'd say is how I'll put that nicely. That was just everyone on Nightmare Eclipse were playing at it's such a high key. The macro understanding, the movements, everything just felt like it was so on a tear for this team. And Exo Azoth, I don't know what, it's hard to kind of like understand where you go because you're just like, everything's going against us. We're getting deflected. We're getting rail shot in our spawn. It's so hard to go up against a team that is just playing at such a high level like we're seeing Nightmare Eclipse. And this is why I think they're showing, like, that Suzu is disgusting. It's one of the best Suzus I've ever seen. Just the reaction time to just take out Barrage completely. And Nightmare are showing why they are one of the favorites in this tournament, if not the favorite.
Well, and again, it really leans into some of the conversation that you and I had, where, you know, when we look at the previous series, the Pharah being such a contributing factor to why a team can be successful. How is it that you counteract against it? Here is a perfect example of a team that recognizes that something like this has been brought to the table. How is it that we can play not only just, yes, when we talk about the skill of these individuals, but also just the methodology behind how is it that we can deny value being brought to a character, that a hero that really can impact a fight like this. And in every waking moment, the multitude of times that we saw this Hazard diving in onto it, the Genji sweeping in, the resistance, and like you mentioned, the Suzu denying the value to be made. That's just where you're putting salt in the wound to deny this Pharah from being actually a feasible pick, and then just getting inside of the mental, outside of the tactical play factor.
And it's not like they're going up against a Pharah, you know, like who's a chump. Jeremy's very good at this hero.
Yeah,
incredibly good. We saw back in Major 3, there were times where teams were just completely at the whim of Jeremy's Pharah, and now it feels like Jeremy unfortunately can't find a foothold, not to any of their own discredit, but because you're having a Hazard in your face, you have a Genji in your face, and two very capable Hazard and Genji players, right? Like Hitori is playing, maneuvering around those roofs, staying in the air so well. Peace is, I think I saw Peace almost one-shot the Pharah with like a slice and dice move, and it's just a great understanding from Nightmare to really understand where the bread is buttered from this EXO team and really put that pressure on, like really make sure that we're not going to lose to Jeremy. Like it's like when teams would play against Michael Jordan and they're just like, we have to have Jordan rules just to make sure that Michael Jordan can't beat us with the Detroit Pistons and just beat him up every time he came down into the paint.
That's going to be your first sports reference for 2020.
I held it. I held it for like a good amount of. I held it for like 2 hours, didn't I?
2? Bro, like, I honestly am a little disappointed that it wasn't sooner.
I do it for you because you know,
I know you really do. I'll get.
You should know your
DBZ
Chicago
reference.
Bulls history because you were from Chicago. Though.
Yo, to be fair, I grew up in Arizona, so I was a Phoenix Suns fan. So Charles Barkley was my go-to before then moving to Chicago because my dad was from Chicago, so he also knew MJ and the aura that was MJ that everyone still to this day recognizes. Let's not talk, no hate, love everyone else. All the like people out there that are like, oh, LeBron and everything else is like, no. I get LeBron's cool and all, but like the legend himself. The legend himself shall never be dethroned. Sorry, okay?
You're stepping into some dangerous territory with the GOAT debate for basketball.
I will take this debate because I have seen far too many TikToks or other things of professionals saying it's a different story when you talk about MJ. There's a different story as we're going to be heading into this.
I didn't know these bugs were here either.
Yo, Ob's just giving us the glory that is these maps in detail. Oh my gosh, there's more! They're everywhere!
I had no idea these were here.
I hope we don't have. I hope those in the chat don't have like a bug phobia. What? It's like arachnophobia, but that's like specifically spiders.
That's for spiders.
I wonder if there's just
overall
bug.
There's a phobia
like creepy crawly legs. Somebody knows it. Somebody will add us on X and tell us that we're
There's a phobia for everything if you know, try hard enough. But
If you believe hard enough.
if you believe hard enough. But I think what we believe in is that Nightmare Eclipse is going to probably roll out on their standard composition that doesn't feel like EXO has been able to force them off of yet. And we'll see EXO stick more towards that standard mirror matchup, which does worry me a little bit. I mean, the Pharah was worrying me because of how well Nightmare Eclipse were playing against it. But we'll see now with the Genji. Jeremy, a very adept Genji, nothing to scoff at. So we'll see if Jeremy can find a way to really get a lot more value. But, oh, already a very aggressive dive, and Peace takes down Unlucky Mane, and this is just kind of what we've been seeing, Rich, throughout the entirety of this series so far is Peace and Nenwai on the flank, getting into that back line and just assassinating one of the members and making it an easy 5v4 to start things off.
That's like a Goomba stomp moment where you're like, all right, I'm kind of playing a little bit with my food where I will eventually get it. And Nightmare Eclipse just really exerting dominance here, even with this adaptation from Jeremy to try and go onto this Genji to go head for head.
Oh, okay. Rice Rail Shot takes down Nenwai a little bit low. If we can put some more pressure on the Nenwai, that might help a little bit with these duels that we're seeing. But Unlucky Mane gets taken down by Peace, and we see what we're talking about with the supportive roles a little bit, where every time that you see Wisp is hitting one of these rail shots, it's just immediately followed up by a very aggressive dash from Peace. So this DPS duo synergy working out so well during this series so far, and it looks like Nightmare are going to continue where they left off in that previous map and just run it down.
Like, with how fluid this is, it just makes me think of that old statement where it's just like, if you pour water into a cup, it becomes the cup. It's just like, always thinking about that. That was Jet Li.
That was, okay.
Yeah. Or no.
No,
wait,
that was
right?
the,
No, that's, wow, I'm going brain dead. Somebody will correct me in the chat, as we do get a quick sweeping strike again from Peace, and now the blade hacking and slashing in the back, just continuing to put salt in the wound.
Is it Bruce Lee?
Bruce Lee, thank you. I was just gonna say you're amazing. This is why we're casting to If you see Hattori go right back in, Kitsune Rush down the choke point. This tunnel is gonna be dangerous for Hattori and has to abandon ship. Kindred gets a nice elimination onto Wisp, so again, Nightmare Eclipse being somewhat denied their positioning and really just at a full retreat so that they can regroup.
They do have to be careful though. Nightmare with a good disengage there from all things considered, but EXO finally are going to be able to get a foothold a little bit right now. Both Kitsune Rushes were committed there. Nenwai a little bit ahead because of how much damage they've been doing and following along with this Genji, but here comes an overclock from Kuna, but Kuna getting teamed down low, has to dive out.
Ooh. Unfortunately, there is no way that things are going to look bright as the sound barrier comes out, able to get... Oh, but Hattori is down. The downfall actually gets the elimination, but as I say, that piece is going to come in, attempting to turn this back. Now, Jeremy, with that consistent... Well, unfortunately, there's no deep light to deny those incoming shurikens, so things look a little dire, and that's going to be the checkpoint reached.
And 5 minutes for Nightmare Eclipse to work with here. A lot of time in the bank. Nenwai playing on a knife... Oh, my God. The okie doke. Oh! That was closer, potentially, than it should have been right there. Nenwai has been playing very aggressive on this Lucio, and it's been working. I mean, the way that I think Peace and Nenwai have been moving has been so fantastic for really putting that pressure down, and you can see EXO just going back over to that Mauga composition. Pauline gets obliterated by Peace, and how many times have we seen a support get one shot by this Genji player?
And now you can see again Kindred having to give ground and fall back. There's Peace looking for the aggressive play, get some deflect damage, and gonna have the follow through by Wisp.
I mean, it's very difficult right now without a tank for EXO to poke out here. They need to be careful, don't want to lose any of these members in those side lanes. Unlucky Mane has the sound barrier available, so he's going to have that a little bit before Nenwai, but both these teams coming up on the Kitsune Rush. We'll see if Nightmare want to go aggressively first.
Ooh, Unlucky now has to fall back, force out the sound barrier with only a few slivers of health remaining. Pushing forward, you can see that Peace with this blade still has the deflect to get out if necessary, but great recovery here. EXO Azathoth having the spawn advantage is able to deny and get the eliminations. Payload finally ceasing to move forward, but still, this is 4 minutes with only a few meters realistically left to go.
Yeah, it's pretty much one team fight if it's clean and you're going to be able to take this map, but I think for Nightmare Eclipse, they're totally fine with the trade like that. Yes, they use Kitsune Rush and yes, they use Dragon Blade, but now they have a sound barrier of their own, which they can just use to blanket any aggressive dive they want and take this backline out.
Tori on the outskirts will look to fall back to regroup and anchor towards this corner. Kitsune Rush now. That's a nice pickup to come through. Unlucky Mane gonna be unfortunately regretting that positioning. Kindred
was Peace alive?
The doorway. Oh my goodness. This is just constant lockdown. where Kindred at this point uses the charge to reposition and unfortunately just can't get out and has no abilities to sustain.
I mean, Tori is just playing bodyguard right now. Now, is there even potential for Exo to get onto the cart? They can't. And even Crispin claimed 3 minutes for Nightmare Eclipse, and I don't know if we have a series on our hand anymore, Rich. This is just, again, it's been so crisp and clean, so convincing from Nightmare, and it feels like Nightmare could be playing anyone right now, and they wouldn't struggle at all.
And this is why there's been so many that have really, talked heavily about another one. I swear they had to have had those recently. That was never there. But as you mentioned, like, it's that the series is just so challenging when you have a team that is playing with such precision and just almost effortless action is how I would say, is that it has just innately been a part of them in what they're doing, and there is just no hesitation on execution.
Yeah, I think it's the no hesitation and like the trust that I think everyone has in each other, and the synergy has really been kind of the most impactful thing for me, right? Where it's like when it's Nenwai diving along with Peace on the flanking angles, when it's Wisp hitting one rail shot to the body and then Peace immediately following up, whether it's Satori and Peace diving together like we saw against Jeremy on that fair, like everyone seems like they're working so well together. Even the Suzus that we saw from Z, and at any time, pretty much, the main one I talk about is the one that we saw from the Barrage in the previous series, but they seem like they've been pretty good throughout the entirety of the map so far. So I think that this is just a team that's playing at a insane clip right now, and for Exo Azeroth, it's a heavy climb for them to try and get back into this one. And even if they cap, they're looking at a 3-minute time bank on the other side still.
That was also really funny to see, like, a deflected jagged rock. It's just like, you take the boulder. No, I'm gonna take the boulder. No, you take the rock. Anyway, side note.
It's not a boulder, it's a rock.
It's not a boulder. It's a rock. As we've got an early pickup, 1-for-1 trade. Nenwai goes down, so there is the loss of that mobility and utility that can come through from the support play. But Z's still here to top up as Kindred gets a nice pickup on the piece again. The one that we've talked so much about and how much influence it can have. But Z's is still in the equation here, attempting to keep this team flourishing, and it's gonna work out wonders.
And I mean, I really like the decision-making of like trying to go aggressively for that Lucio, maybe take away that potential to rotate around, as Hitori lives with 39 health, gonna get healed back up by the rest of the team, and Nightmare Eclipse, I mean, after losing Nenwai very early, still managed to turn that fight around with some nice plays off the backside, and Peace holding here strong at the side lane with Nenwai always pocketing them. It is gonna be a little bit ahead for Z's in terms of that Kitsune rush.
See Unlucky Main playing in the back to look for the movement on entry for Exo Azeroth, playing up that stairway. Disruptor Shot gonna block entry for the moment until it dissipates. Once again, no that for free damage. On the outskirts, though, you see the jagged walls coming in, denying a chase, an attempt. The Suzu will keep Kindred alive and manage to get them out.
Gonna be more time taken off the clock, though, which is the scary thing for Exo. They continue to just try and find a foothold, whether it's on the flank, but it feels like Nightmare Eclipse is always checking them.
Kitsune Rush, the wall buys a few microseconds worth of time. Kindred now down below, fleeing as Peace left out in the open. This is the second time that we've seen Peace go down, but is there a recovery tactic? Z's giving the Kitsune Rush from the high ground. Nice reposition.
Oh my god, it's everyone.
And keeps Hitori alive to get a beautiful downpour and just absolutely annihilate Exo's plan.
I mean, you talked about like the few milliseconds that the wall got. That's all you need sometimes. As a downpour comes in from Kindred, that feels just like a desperational at that point, and that's one that Kindred's definitely going to want to have back. But with a minute and 30 seconds right now, Exo Azeroth don't have a lot to work with, and Nightmare Eclipse want to try and push away as many of Exo's members away from this point. You see DPS ultimates available for both these teams relatively soon. Sound Barrier is going to be the big thing, though, from Unlucky Main and Nenwai to deal with them.
I'm going to pay very close attention because it's the last 60 seconds to go. The only opportunity here for Exo to have to keep this series going before saying a fond farewell. In the lower bracket, Tuna, not yet committing the overclock, gets one of the rails to resets it, and Nenwai gets the pickup. huge focus fire with the ultimate online. Wisp now fleeing for their life is going to get a nice evasion down below and topped up by the healers. There's no way that EXO can get back into this. They're going to have one last attempt, and they're fleeing for their lives.
Oh, they're going to try and get stragglers here and see if they can push the pace a little bit more right now. Kuna's going to go down. Hitori needs to stay alive so that this defense can continue from Nightmare Eclipse. 30 seconds left for EXO Thought that they will be taking a swift 3-0 to that lower bracket. But look at Nightmare Eclipse in terms of their ultimate. And also a very aggressive blade from the Genji.
Yeah, huge
gonna
aggression.
work.
There is a sound barrier.
we're
It's
touching
going to
spawn
hold
doors.
them into the spawn. They love the spawn door plus marker. That's what they're doing. Jeremy, though, at least gets one onto piece. The damage is already done, as we've said once before. Is there anyone even close enough to touch? It is going to be Kindred going in for contention into the overtime, but there is a fast regroup back to the point to deny it. It is just stragglers that come to the point. The downfall will be EXO's downfall. Downpour to downfall. That's what I meant to say. It's Nightmare Eclipse. You caught that. I knew you did. You're like, okay, Richie, is your brain still there? Yeah, it's still here. As we're going to see Nightmare Eclipse able to take this and continue moving forward in an extremely dominant fashion.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really much more to say than just convincing right now. Everyone played so incredibly well. There was moments from every single one of these members, and it felt like all 5 of them really were just a well-oiled machine. And this team, if they continue playing like this, I don't know who's stopping them. They are very, very strong. And this was a team that we thought, you know, they got a map taken off of earlier in the bracket before this, and now they come in and they 3-0 a very good EXO team and make a Jeremy, who was one of the best players I think that we saw from Major 3, not really get as much value because of just the amount of pressure that was being put down, and they knew the target selection was always there for Nightmare Eclipse. It was fantastically played all around, and there's not much more to say besides that.
Yeah, and as we look through these replays, it's just so much dominance and just the effortless coordination. I'll say it again. It really is, and it's something that, from an opponent's standpoint, recognizing what this team is doing and trying to find the weak point is going to be a task, like a real task, to figure out where a break point is on this group of individuals.
Yeah, because I mean, you look at it this series, there wasn't a weak spot.
Yeah.
There was like no weak spot. It felt like they had the advantage every single time. Even when they were losing fights and they were losing members early, which could be punished later in the bracket, they still were winning 4v5s. They were winning 3v5s sometimes with clutches. So I think that this team, again, just seems like they are so cohesive in how they play, so determined that and definitive in their dives and their engagement, like you mentioned, making it look effortless. I think that this team definitely is deserving, after a showing like this, to be one of the favorites of this tournament, if not the favorite.
And we're going to be heading to a short break before getting the opportunity to speak with one of those individuals. So don't go anywhere, my friends, because we'll be back to hear the way that they feel about their performance as well. So don't go back. We're back, my friends, as we now get to take a quick look at some replays, as you've already seen the series, but for those that might have stepped away and grabbed a bite to eat, now you get to see it in its encapsulated form from start to finish. Before we get that lovely interview, and Kenobi, we already basically saw from the doors opening what to expect, and it was never let... The pedal was never released. It was just to the floor the whole time.
No footholds for Exo throughout the entirety of the series, pretty much. And Nightmare, it felt like they were on a mission to just completely take over the series and not let Exo back into it at all. And you're right, they never got their foot off the pedal. And I think that this replay package is going to be pretty much almost exclusively Nightmare clips. But I think the other thing about this was just like the clutch ability of this team was fantastic. Yeah. I think I'm always looking to that one Suzu that we saw against the Barrage, against Jeremy on that Esperanza map. But even beyond that, like, they're winning 4v5s, they're winning 3v5s sometimes. Like, this team just overall, we talked about it, so decisive and never really looked panicked. That's the thing that I really took away from that.
Absolutely, and we do get that opportunity to speak with someone from this amazing team, and we get to get some insight and talk a little bit. As we've got Wisps joining us, how are you doing, my friend? What a performance you and the squad has put on just this recent series.
Hi, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you.
So talk to me a little bit about your role as a DPS, because we heard a little bit earlier from Minami that Sojourn has taken more of a supportive DPS role in this kind of meta that we're in at the current moment with the Hazard. What are your thoughts on how Sojourn operates? Because you had some pop-off moments yourself, but do you think there's something to Sojourn taking a little bit more of a backseat to the Genji and the Hazard in a meta like this?
Personally, I don't really think of it that way. I think it's just like you have to really understand like spacing really importantly. So like there's like Hazard is just really scary as a tank, like with like one-shot potential, especially with like Genji and Rail. So like there's windows where you do have to play like really afraid, but I don't think it's as afraid, it's more as playing in like proper space. And then like Sojourn is like really good at being able to like flip map and like dictate like where your team plays. So like when their Hazard like engages, you just like slide and like completely take their side of the map, and like you can kind of like dictate exactly where the fight's taking. So I think it's like a pretty commanding hero like in this meta.
Okay.
Yeah, we saw a couple of occasions too where you were specifically like sliding into those types of positions like you're mentioning, and the value that's really brought to it. So when it comes to that kind of repositioning aspect, and we got to see a lot as well from Peace really getting these early off angles or flanks or the coordination, what's the communication kind of like with Peace and in the way that Peace is playing? And is it something more so just between like Peace and the tank, or is it you and Peace? Like what is that like?
I think the biggest like structures with this meta is like the Genji and the Hazard a lot, like their pinches, and then like the Sojourn in the backline, and like the Lucio can kind of listen to like whichever, but usually it's like the Genji and Hazard talking to each other, and then I'm like telling my team exactly like if their Hazard comes on me, like I'm gonna like rotate here, or like I'm gonna like tell them where I'm flipping, and like everyone has to follow and like come with me or else I die. And like that's kind of how the comp structures work, where it's like the Sojourn in the backline, and then like the front line would be like the Genji and Lucio sometimes, and Haz.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about the rest of the tournament and this meta, because it feels like, based on what we saw here in this 3-0, that this meta fits your team extremely. Like Rich and I know Peace back from contenders and back from in collegiate right now with the Genji and how well it feels like, but it feels like everyone on this team is playing a hero that they're extremely good at. Do you feel kind of similarly, where all of you are just like, we're feeling ourselves, we are very good at this meta in particular?
Yeah, I think we are. I will say though, like I know it doesn't show, but this is like the first meta like Hitori has complained so much about ping, like because she's on so she complains a lot about like Hazard no reg slashing, and like we were definitely prepared like a lot for like if we like don't want to play it, or like we've still like tried to make it work, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. But I would say like this is the first meta where like Hitori's definitely like not really enjoyed the hero they're on and been a little worried about ping, but it definitely can't tell watching.
I was gonna say, yeah, we don't notice it at all.
Yeah, they were on the air. They were anti-air Pharah throughout like the entirety of East Toronto. I couldn't tell that there was any problems.
Yeah, I saw her like CS:GO surfing for like one point. That was like, crazy.
We had a really good clip of it. There was a lot of rooftop evasion and maneuverability, so it was really exciting to be able to get to chit chat with you and talk a little bit about kind of the methodology and the comm structure and the way that your team is playing, and even those little hiccups of not wanting to be on the hazard. But I mean, your performance today was absolutely seamless. So we're really looking forward to seeing, you and the team continue to move forward in this upper bracket, and, if there's going to be a team that can even match what you've brought to the table. So thank you so very much for your time, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, there's some words that we get in, the insight for those that might be at home, who have their own little group of friends that they like to play for comm structure and talking about. You get a little bit of that, high level competitive play talk.
I think it's so interesting also like how different kind of players view their hero, and
yeah,
I think that was a really interesting answer that we got from both of the players, where it's like, sometimes, and I think that's probably indicative of the team more so in like environment where it's like, if we want to play, or like a play style where it's like we want to play Sojourn a little more supportive, or we want to play Sojourn a little bit more aggressively, like we saw from Nightmare Eclipse there. It was super interesting to kind of get two different sides to what the Sojourn brings to the table in both of these compositions. So
yeah,
very, very interesting stuff that we kind of, I think this will also evolve and probably change with team to team, right? It's like how that Sojourn operates, because it feels like Genji is very strong and Hazard is very strong, but there is still moments for that Sojourn to pop off.
And you talk about change and different understandings, and what really is great change? You getting a new gaming chair, right? I mean, come on, like, you gotta change it up. You gotta be able to get rid of your steel aluminum fold-out chair like I had years ago, as you yourself talked about, with the dent in it that's super rough on the bum. Is you're gonna have now the opportunity for a Blacklight chair giveaway. Again, this ergonomic chair just being able to change the entirety of your gaming experience, and you can make sure to be entered into this by going specifically onto x.com Radiant GG, where you have the pinned comment that tells you exactly how to be involved in this and to have the opportunity to win one of these as well by reposting and replying to enter. So make sure that you do go to that specifically, along with the opportunity where you can react to enter when it comes to the Calling All Heroes verified Discord members. So those multiple options for you to be able to get a chair like this, and Blacklight being a tremendous sponsor to give these away. And I cannot wait to see the posts from those who actually get the winning opportunity to get one of these chairs and to just show it in your gaming space. It's gonna make me super jelly.
I mean, yeah, we're going a long way from the steel chairs that we saw, but I mean, also the winners of the tournament are going to be getting some as well, so that's going to be really awesome to see. And obviously, thank you to Blacklight.
And the trophies that are from Blacklight too.
Literally about to mention you.
I stole it.
We're like this. We're like this, me and you. But yeah, it's just been great to have Blacklight here as a sponsor, and there's still a lot more great Overwatch to come. I mean, yes, that series was a little bit one-sided, but it was still some really good Overwatch, I'd say, from Nightmare Eclipse. So we'll see if that can continue.
If anything, it's like two sides of the coin. We had a really fast one, and then now we're gonna have a really long 5-mapper. I'm hoping that I didn't just ruin it. And then you can say, the
Caster
line and the thing and the stuff. I didn't say anything. I swear. We're gonna rewind and go back. But yes, we will be heading to a short break before entering into that final series for the day. So don't go anywhere, because we're just as excited as you are to see if this one can go the distance. Welcome back again, my friends. We've had 2 series, and now we're on to the 3rd, and it's going to be a great time. Why is it a great time? Because you're here with Kenobi and Rad. Yes! We're back.
Why did you do that voice? What was the voice for?
I don't know. It just kind of felt like it was needed. I felt like I had to do that. Yes. But we've got 2 matches. Like I said, we had one that was definitely a lot faster, just past us by, as we're going to be now entering into our 3rd for the day, our 2nd semi-final match, as it's going to be Valentine versus Yes, as they are going to be pushing forward to see one of these teams facing off against Nightmare Eclipse.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about a little bit how this bracket has shaken up so far in that quarterfinal, where that maybe one map against Who Is Not Okado was a wake-up call for Nightmare, who briefly 3-0'd just now Exo Azthoth. But Yes being up here, CB was talking with us a little bit yesterday, Rich, and if there's anyone I kind of want to know, if I want to know anything about Calling All Heroes, it's probably CB. And CB was like, that's a big upset. Queen's Gambit, I mean, was in the grand finals of Major 3, and taking him down this early is a big deal. So we'll see exactly what made this team so strong, as we're going to see them now on broadcast, and we can check out their roster right now.
Well, and I mean, especially when we just talk about, again, the differentiation between Major 3 and this. I mean, Hazard being a massive aspect to it. And in this case, everyone really wanting to choose Hammond. I think that's a huge thing. I just want to highlight that. Yes.
I looked at their team sheets, and it's just all... It's all Hammond. Just all the way down.
All Hammond. All Hammond.
Don't
all
think
day,
it's going to be
nothing else
possible. I
matters.
think Roll Q is going to take us away from that. But I think...
Lies.
Yeah. Again, it'll be interesting to see kind of like... Beating a team like that strong is always a big momentum booster, right? Going through that upper bracket. And you kind of feel invincible, especially against a team that's that good. Throwing them down to the upper bracket in a Map 5 series as well, where it's like you had to really grit it out. So this team definitely have a lot, in terms of that momentum going forward, and we'll see if they can continue that against a very good Valentine side.
As we get to take a look at the opponents, Valentine, like you mentioned, and again, able to get a massive opportunity of taking a look at this. Also, team manager, Aeroplane, you and I also know for a very long time.
Oh, we love Aeroplane.
Yeah, I know. Like, being able to just see what she's able to do as the leader. We've seen her coach and lead and just be a part of, like, assisting in that aspect for many years, and has always been, like, a massive figure as a team manager, and just overseeing these individuals, and again, these names who we've seen perform before in many of these majors before. It's just a well-rounded synergy from the squad.
Yeah, we're also familiar with Bernice because of her playing collegiate as well. Also, back in Contenders, I think Mari is someone that I'm very, Myers is going to be locked on, especially because I think tank is so important, and she back in the 3rd major was a very good tank. I think that definitely is something that I'm going to be looking out for, is going to be this tank matchup, because of, from all the interviews we've heard, the two that it's been, Hazard is pretty important in terms of just like the overall dynamic of this composition. And I think like being able to have that ability to, surf on the roof like we saw in that last series, if you can figure out like the way to maneuver really well around something like Hazard's movement, I think that just makes the hero so much higher in value. Like, I think that the skill ceiling of a hero like Hazard is so incredibly high, and with these 2 tanks that we have, I think they'll probably be playing up to that standard.
And again, the other dynamic to it, just really looking into the significance of the Hazard play, is that was a big differentiator from the Major 3 to this one. So one of those reasons why maybe there is that significant upset, like you touched on, and CB's insight of what big changes could have happened. I mean, it went to a map 5. It was an extremely grueling match between the 2 of them, and now entering in and starting out here on Control, we get to see another foundation laid in between these 2 teams, and who is going to continue moving forward. But again, this is the upper bracket semifinal, so there is another chance of redemption for those who are not going to be taking the victory here.
And we'll see as we start off on Control Center as our first map here on Lijiang Tower. I wouldn't expect a Reinhardt. Granted, it's Control Center, and if there was ever a chance that I would see Reinhardt ever in any Overwatch map right now, this would probably be it.
This would be
But I don't think it's going to be. It's going to be that Hazard matchup. The difference we'll see is if there's going to be anything in terms of that support or DPS change. It looks like it's going to be the standard here, unless these Symmetras are not going to be on the Genji, but it looks like it will be that way. So, start things off here. Nice wall from Mari to section off. Remedy from the rest of the team.
What a crosshair, too.
Yeah, that was crazy.
$5. We're gonna get to see it again. As you can see that, well, Crosshair or not, going to be gaining some value, and a big repositional dive as well, getting a second onto Sholin, denying any sort of viability for Yes to be able to stick around here.
Yeah, I wonder if this is a Hazard-specific Crosshair, because I can't imagine using this in any other scenario, but it works. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and there it was all really Mari at the start. She had a great engagement with that wall, really made it hard for Amity to move, and Yes are going to be on the back foot a little bit right here, as now all of the sightlines are going to be available for Ivory on the Sojourn to try and poke and prod, see if a rail shot can find a hit.
And Genji needs to play a little aggressive. A little bit of a divide and conquer here. Front position from Bug Soup. Now having to fall back and look for the regroup. And maybe gonna find damage. There's the pick. Amity goes in very quickly as Bug Soup gets extremely low on this front line. And when you lose the tank like that, things can get so dangerous. Hazard being so influential, as you mentioned. As Amity looks to rotate back, gets the Suzu, managing to get a sustain. Still not fully topped up here. It's being really challenging to get through this since there's so much damage coming out from Ivory on the backside. Ivory's actually going to get the pickup alongside Zoe, who takes down Amity.
Oh, and those picks come in at the worst moment for Yes because Macy has to commit that Kitsune rush to that fight, and Zoe was just a complete pest during that. I mean, staying alive throughout, even deflected the wall back into Amity, and unfortunately, what looked like a great fight to start off with Yes taking down Mari at the start. Bug Soup ends up falling flat, and now at 70% and ticking upwards for Valentine, needing one more fight to win. 5 ultimates in their back pocket, Rich.
See which they're going to lead with first. Kitsune rush to start. And you can see that Yes needs to be very careful. Wait for that to fade. There is still enough time to go back in once it drops, and they've got a few ultimates now ready. Amity also approaching this downpour. Driving forward, looks to probably lead with the sound barrier to give some protection. Needs to use it soon. Macy is low. The blade comes out. Sabotabi is unfortunately extremely low, while Zoe blockades the remaining few in the choke point. And this reposition isn't able to even get back in to compete against it. And that is a 100-0 dominant performance by Valentine.
Very composed from Valentine. I mean, that one fight where Mari went down really early on the Hazard, because she got a little bit too aggressive, I think, and wasn't respecting the damage on the other side. The way that the rest of the team kind of just stayed alive and just didn't panic and were using their movement cooldowns very effectively, using their peel cooldowns effectively to make sure that Amity isn't just able to completely slash and dash through the team, I think was really well played, and that was something that made a complete difference. You see Valentine taking a 1-0 lead here as we go on to our next map of Lijiang Tower, and this would be probably where we could potentially see a Pharah if these teams are going to be opting to change things up at all.
As the doors open, taking a look.
Oh, Tracer.
Nope, it's going to be Tracer. Okay.
It does offer a little bit more of that flank potential where you can play from that side, poke a little bit more, make it a little bit more difficult for AJMR and for Bernice to really get a lot of value. But Bernice already takes down Shul, and that's the fight completely over.
Yep, that boop is critical. And then Bug Soup just comes in to clean up anyone that's still there, and that's a decent amount of percentage gained here, just to, again, continue to give agency for Valentine to take the lead.
Really good aggression, I think, from Valentine, because they see the Tracer, and they see the Tracer is flanking, as Bernie's going to moonwalk a little bit on this Lucio. They see the Tracer flanking, and they know that Yes wants to play a little bit more slow. They have the Tracer who's just going to try and poke and prod from it towards that Pulse Bomb, and they're just like, okay, we're going to take a 4v5 engage, and the Tracer is nowhere near this fight, and that's going to be totally fine for us.
Oh, there's a separation. Oh, Sabotabi needs to be very careful. No recall remaining. And the dashes are barely... Oh! Didn't have the second one come up in time. So that's unfortunately a loss, and this is now where another retreat comes in from Yes. They're just not able to really gain a foothold on any aspect of this map so far.
Really good understanding from Valentine, as well as Bernie's gonna moonwalk after another great boop there. But I think they just understood so well that Sabotabi had gotten all the way back into the back line. They used the recall, and then they just go find, with the other Lucio, they go find the Tracer, boop off, no recall, you're out of that fight, and that's really well played, again, from Valentine, who are positioning so well against what Yes is trying to run.
50% already accumulated by Valentine. Macy trying to keep this team topped up as much as possible. The damage is just so heavy from Valentine.
Oh my god, it's 3.
Huge boop again Bernice just coming out on top and really showing how much value this Lucio can bring to the mix. Moonwalk again, maybe. Oh, crazy crosshair. Crazy crosshair. Now going to come in with Bug Soup. Looking to zone them back. Almost about to have another down 4. Will most likely look to use that to isolate, but that is a beautiful Suzu to get out. Unfortunately, though, AJMR and Ivory get stuck within it, and that gives another chance here. Oh, yes.
I mean, they Dragon Blade here. Bernice has this sound barrier available, but I don't know if you want to throw it out. Actually, can live here. Gonna end up going down to the wall, and maybe Valentine just a little bit too over-aggressive there, but a really nice collapse from Oyas if they've been punishing that little bit of overextension that we saw from Bug Soup, who might have gone a little bit too close to the sun.
I think the other part of it, too, is that the Suzu got Bug Soup out of it, but I think they were maybe hoping that everyone else was a lot closer so it cleanse everybody, but it's still a little bit of a fail moment, but that's okay as you've got Shoal now with the overclock, getting a great early takedown onto Ivory, and then the follow-through onto AJMR just continuing to show that they're going to hold this choke point and deny Valentine from getting back in.
Yeah, now you have a lot of these sightlines to work with. Also, the Tracer's going to have a lot of value in terms of being able to flank with that Pulse Bomb. I think this is a really good position for Oyas to be in. They want to be in a scenario where they can have control of these sightlines, but they do have to be worried about the downpour being able to just completely annihilate a team fight.
Sabotabi.
This ends
the full pump. Look for a flanking angle once the engagement begins. That jagged wall was there for a hot second, but brought down instantaneously as Ivory takes an off angle with the sound barrier. The downpour doesn't quite land. There is now a return fire. Ivory gets one onto Sabotabi, who was looking in the wings, but not going to really bring any value to this engagement, as it's still a 5 versus 4, 70% in climbing. Oyas actually able to turn this around and make it an even 5 for 5, but in the or 4 for 4, but in the mix, Valentine swaps it over.
Oh, and Shul going down. That means there's not a lot of damage here. It's just going to be Sabotabi, who almost gets booped off the map by Bernice again. Another boop potentially taking down a member, and here comes a Kitsune Rush from Valentine to try and close it out.
That should be the nail in the coffin. The downpour you can see comes through the back doorway, not really getting anyone since no one from Valentine takes a step into it because the graphic is still visible, and that's now going to be a first map win here for Valentine.
Yeah, Valentine pretty convincing there. I mean, they had that one hiccup with the fight where I think Mari went a little bit too over-aggressive and didn't respect the damage, but beyond that, it was just easy pickings, it felt like, for this side of Valentine, who... Again, this was the fight that I really liked how they played, where they, or not this one, the one after this one, where they were able to clutch out in a 4v5, which they did a couple of times, actually. So I think that this team, what I'm seeing is I'm not seeing a lot of panic from them, which is a lot of composure, which is always indicative of a very good team and a team that can make a deep run. And when you look at, I mean, the roster, like, you'd expect it from a lot of these players. Right? We're pretty familiar with a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, and again, it kind of calls back to what we were, mentioning about Nightmare Eclipse earlier, where it's just this level-headedness, it's this very well-understood synergy, and you can definitely see that here coming out from Valentine as well, never really finding themselves in an uncomfortable position where they didn't know exactly how to react. And from this first and second round, the second one, I mean, again, when you get a pick like this so early and you start laying that foundation of this is what is going to continue to occur, it's really devastating. But I will say, at least Oyas, once they were able to finally get the advantage, that downpour really gave them a lot of benefit. They did come back with a decent force. It's just really understanding that ebb and flow and the timing of how they want to use their ultimate economy.
Yeah, and I think the thing about when I look at Valentine in terms of their ultimate usage is that one team fight that we saw where it was kind of the sound barrier, Kitsune versus Kitsune. One of the things that I really liked that they did was they used their sound barrier early and then got one in response because they knew that they had their own downpour, and the downpour didn't get like a ton of value, unfortunately, but like the idea, the thought process was there, and it shows me that they are thinking about still the game on a macro level, as we are going to be going to Numbani, it looks like, is our next map. So this is interesting in the sense that this would be like where I'd be seeing maybe like a Pharah, but it feels like it'd also just be like standard. And this is maybe a map that if you're you're thinking you probably like a little bit more if you are choosing this one, obviously. So I think that's probably where they're opting in for this one. Or they do have like a little bit of a wrinkle in terms of like maybe an Ana, maybe a Winston composition, something like that.
And again, with what we've already seen on this map specifically, we had the chance to see it competitively just this last series. The Malga, again, was something I think that was just unique enough to one of the teams. So going into this with having the Hazard v Hazard, I think will be an interesting aspect to also take a look at, because I think that's something that's going to be a lot more relevant in how both these teams play. And I also feel that Yes might have a better time being able to utilize that and go head-to-head on a map type like this versus the Control that we were just on.
They did also beat Queen's Gambit on this map yesterday. So,
yes.
Like, you know, if you're just like thinking about like, oh, maps that are good for us, definitely one of them is if you can beat a team like Queen's Gambit on it, you should have a pretty good time as well.
I didn't notice this. Is that like a cat face?
Like the green things are like eyes? Are you thinking?
It
of,
looks like either that or like a Mewtwo kind of head thing. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Those are definitely eyes for sure. Those are.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so, ooh, is it like a Persian cat? I don't know.
Oh.
Like, you know what I'm talking about? Ooh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm right.
They're definitely
I'm gonna
eyes.
say
They're
yes.
for sure eyes.
They're definitely eyes. And then there's kind of like an itty bitty little nose. You see the little yellow thing right there? I think that might be a lighting. I don't know. It's okay. We're having a moment again about the, it's the lighting. What?
So this is
No way.
So this is, I mean, so I saw them put Wrecking Ball, all of them. We have like a here for roster graphic type thing. It was at Wrecking Ball everywhere. I'm understanding why now. This is why. This is a very, very interesting comp that we're seeing on the defense as well. Like on the offense, I would like be more expecting of this, but on the defensive end, this is not what I was expecting. And this, what I see from this from Yes is just disruption, just a complete amount of disruption. Overload the enemy team with the flankers, with everything here. But if Macy goes down that early, it's going to be a little bit difficult to pilot.
Yeah, we'll see what happens now. I mean, again, this is just already spelling disaster. Not yet rotated down to the bottom. Well, now that the rest of that high ground has been completely removed from their positioning, we're going to have it go again.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing about that composition from Yes, it's like you want to play it a little bit more slowly. You want to be the one to dictate the engages. You don't really have a lot of feel for your team. And there, Valentine are just like, hey, we don't care that you're running out on this weird composition. We saw one person who's a little bit away from the rest of the team. Guess what? They're assassinated, and we win the team fight off the back.
We'll see if there's some bearings to be grasped at this moment to recover from that very easy take. Some great tech though from Wrecking Ball, trying to isolate and separate within that side. Pile Driver attempts to go for the stun, but a nice boot back. Force this Wrecking Ball away. Can't quite find nearly as much value. Doesn't get the elimination. So much harassment.
Yeah, a lot of disruption as well, and it's putting really the healers into overtime trying to deal with all of it. Suzu committed, so that's a really good cooldown forced out by this Hammond play from Kanata.
I'm going to try and get another pile drive. Nice boop again to deny that close proximity. The bowling ball for days, but there's, even with this like type of play style, there's no really stopping the consistent momentum that Valentine has.
You have to trade picks. It's like the only way that this comp is going to be able to survive is if you can get, yes, you can get value by like forcing out cooldowns, but it's always going to favor Valentine. If they're diving into the backline with the Genji, with the Hazard, the supports are going to have a hard time dealing with that. So it's on the rest of the team to try and get some sort of value.
Now the Kitsune Rush comes in.
Oh.
Valentine getting the checkpoint. Unfortunately, Wrecking Ball play can't get there fast enough despite the heavy movement. And now, consistently with 6 minutes, this time bank is absurd.
That's one of the fastest Numbanis I think I've seen. This is a crosshair of all time as well.
Oh, good.
What is this?
It is. It's. Wait a second. Is that a pyramid?
It
looks like there's three fading
yeah, I thought there was a
blocks.
block.
There's three.
I thought it was one of those Lego pieces at the start, and then I saw like the little box.
The little third one, the fade one? Yeah, the faded one? I know. Oh my. Well, box or no box, Ivory's making it work.
I mean, it's working really well. Overclock getting a couple of kills here. Macy should not be long for this world in a little bit of time. Sound Barrier committed. Yes wants to try and buy back into this.
Yep, you're going to see now there is the down 4 coming in from Valentine, attempting to lock down the remaining 3 from Yes. Sabatabi gets the pickup at least onto Bernice, so there's no more assisted mobility. That's going to be a swift step and a Suzu to get out of there. And Valentine, their plans have been falling.
I mean, they're going to try and find some kills off the back end of this, but actually really good play from Mari there, Bugsuit, to keep the support alive, because if AJMR gets hit with that pilot driver, that's a dead Kiriko for sure, but really, really well played. And Valentine stopped their momentum a little bit, and now it's time for Yes to see if they can find a foothold.
Nice stun for the moment. Be careful, though, on exit. Kitsune Rush up top. Nice pile drive again to be that shield to mitigate the incoming damage and giving coverage for Macy. But with the Kitsune Rush now falling to the wayside, you can see that Valentine still has theirs for the moment, and Zoe is going to use great value of it. This will again be Valentine with the blade, gonna come out, gets a sweep, resets the dash, and looks for more, chasing down this Wrecking Ball, unable to do much, has to use the defense to give that barrier, but at this point, these meters are gonna shrink right in front of them, and it's only just this constant bob and weave to get back onto the point. The health values aren't topped up. That's easy pickup here for Bug Soup. Wowzers.
Yeah, that was convincing, I'd say the least. It feels like we're seeing the same thing from the last series, where it was just a convincing run through.
Yeah.
7 seconds left, or less than the time that they started with, and I saw the vision, right? The vision of the you know, Hammond, I think, works in terms of like what it wants to do. If they can find a way to like play a little bit more slow. On the defensive end, I think it's really hard to pilot. Like, I think, to be fair to Kanata, I think Kanata has a lot of good understanding of how to run Hammond, which, if you're gonna run Hammond, you gotta be a ball player. Kanata definitely seems like a ball player, right? But I think that just on the defensive side, it just looked really hard to kind of like be able to set the tone. On the offensive side, I think they're gonna have much more of an easier time dealing with it, and or being able to kind of set that pace and set the tone with their engages. And we'll see if Valentine do opt into put Ivory onto this Cassidy, which I would love. I think it's a fantastic decision against Hammond specifically, with that flashbang, making Hammond not really that much valuable.
And we'll see, as there's 20 seconds left to go, and I absolutely agree. Like, because here's the thing, is there were a lot of really good moments with the Wrecking Ball when it came to just some of the tech and the positioning and being able to body block a lot of the incoming damage, having the shield to prevent. But yes, defensively, it just felt like it was a little lackluster. So I'm hoping and agreeing with you that this offense could be much different.
And to be fair to All Yes, a lot of those engages were really good, but you saw some of the peel. Like, even that one moment where Mari was able to knock the Hammond away from the support, like, if you've got peel of that caliber from Valentine on every aspect of the game, it's very hard to secure kills with Hammond.
Oh my.
Good wall.
Yeah, that was atrocious to see how fast that elimination came through. Now,
just a little hamster.
It's just a poor little smart hamster boy.
Are we doing Monty Python now?
Yeah, a little bit. Right. Turn me into a
You're so easy to read.
A newt. It's just because you've been around me for far too long.
I know.
Because you're going to see this Wrecking Ball now attempt to try and cause some harassment on the offense, which you mentioned. As now a flanking angle, but this great couple of body shots come through. It's still AJMR getting some two-piece. Both Shola and Macy are down and not here, and this is just kind of a shambles fight right now.
I mean, they're doing a good job, again, peeling for themselves. Like you saw right there, just bobbing and weaving around the Hammond. And the difficult thing with this Hammond is that, yes, you cause a lot of disruption. You force a lot of cooldowns, but you're there by yourself. And I don't think Hammond, in the current state that Hammond's in, can one-shot or can, like, take down a Lucio and a Kiriko, unless the, you know, scenario is perfect for them. So we'll see. Now that they have space, can Shul get into an area to get some value off the back end? The Kitsune Rush is committed by Valentine here early.
Couple of great shots onto Ivory, but does get taken care of by the support line. Oh no, again, there's just so much damage being put into this Hammond, and there's no way to get out of it.
I mean, the Cassidy's so smart here as well, just making it so difficult for that Hammond to escape, if at all, and now it's just stragglers. This is going to be more time taken off the clock. Shul actually does find one onto Zoe's, and that means this Ashe is still around, still poking and prodding, and now here comes the engage.
Yep, going to give much more opportunity. Oh, yes. Start playing into this. Pulse Bomb gets the stick onto Bernice. There's no sound barrier, so there's no support ultimate. Valentine going to give ground for now. Kitsune Rush down this doorway to deny any sort of easy re-entry, but there is the high noon. Great Suzu to give Ivory another chance. And this is Valentine actually looking to turn this back around. What a wicked turn of events as Valentine forces back Yes to really only get one tick of the three.
And it's like, that's just better defense beating better offense, right? Where it was a great dive from Kanata and the rest of Yes, but a perfectly timed Suzu completely negates what the Hammond was trying to do. And this time bank that Yes had has completely dwindled down. Only a minute left, and there's still a lot of key ultimates for Valentine to use. We'll see what Kanata can do. Already checked by the supporters.
Field, big stun. Sound barrier committed. Bernice gives the coverage to Ivory and themselves. Get back into this. Now.
Suzu!
Oh, gonna get out, but all the resources are down. They can't really do anything else. And that's gonna be a chance now for Yes to go back into this. Looking for the pile drive, gets the elimination. Bob comes in with some crossfire on the point. He's also gonna get locked down. Is Mari now with this great positional play? 30 seconds to go. Is there a chance that this aggression and this attack is falling? Zoe and AJMR deny the attempt. There was so much thrown into this that Yes is unfortunately going to break under the defensive pressure.
What an unreal clutch from Valentine, and Yes used everything to try and win that fight. Sabotabi can come back and maybe find a pulse bomb, but the health pack is stolen away. Recalls forced from both tracers.
Tabby now fleeing for their life with this pulse bomb needing to be thrown. Can anybody get there to touch? Nobody's there in time, and again, just microseconds late as Valentine is able to take this and put themselves on a match point.
And the Hammond experiment does not work here. It is just a fantastically played counter to everything that they were running, and I really am enjoying, throughout this entirety of the day so far, I'm loving seeing the peel we're seeing from supports. Like Lucio, I talked about at the start of the broadcast, is there kind of just to eat rail shot a lot of the time when Sojourn is in the meta. But a lot of what we're seeing from like very good Lucio players, Bernice being one of them, is this peel potential is so strong. And even just the understanding to go for that tracer at the end, right? Like, they were coming that the PvT battle was going on. Bernice goes over there, is able to push the tracer away. That means there's no touch. It only has to be Kanata, and the pulse bomb gets 0 value. Like, it's just very smart play from a lot of these Lucios that we're seeing.
As we take a look at these replays again, it's going to be very Valentine dominant. But, I mean, you have to give props an attempt to what Yes is trying to do. Just really put a change onto this, catching their opponent off guard, hoping that something sticks. And even with these like last moments, and like you said, a better attack, or what was it, a good attack with a better defense. I can't remember.
That's better defense being
better defense
like,
being
better defense being good offense, and
that's what it is. Yes, and it's
I think the actual saying is great defense beating great offense, but I mean, the thing about it is like whenever we saw like a lot of these engages from the Hammond, we saw like AJMR perfectly poised, just hit a Suzu, and the value's gone. That's what I was talking about, where it's like the state that Hammond's in, it feels like you need a buddy, like you need someone to dive with you, and even then it's still hard because Kiriko has Suzu, and if that's not being forced out before, every time 10 out of 10 AJMR is just going to be like, hey, I'm going to hold this until we get dove on in that perfect moment, and then I'm going to, and then we can turn the fight back around. The Cassidy, didn't see it a lot in the kill feed, but just having that stun and the flashbang completely, I think, took the Hammond out of it.
Yeah, gotta find their what is it? Your travel buddy? When they were talking about in school, like if you go on a field trip, it's like, who's your travel buddy?
Oh, your buddies. We didn't call it travel buddies. We just said buddies.
Oh yeah, no, we said travel buddies. I'm just older.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Well, there you go.
Oh goodness. But yes, as we now see Valentine being on a match point, and again, you can see here a 2-0 and a 3-0. It has been quite convincing. Is now potentially this third map is a place where we can see a turn of events. Dorado on Escort is going to be the selection. I do like this.
Yeah, I don't remember. I haven't seen this map in a very long time. At least I haven't casted it in a very long time. But it'll be interesting to see kind of how this map is going to go. Specifically because when we saw Yes, I think, play Escort yesterday, they played Havana and Dorado. Oh, they did play Dorado. It was the one that they won, map 5. They closed it out on. The question for me is like, is this a Hammond map? Is this how they like really were able to take down Queen's Gambit? Because the Hammond is solved. It is solved right now by Valentine, and I don't know if you can just... you could obviously try and play it again, but it feels like after that last map on Dumbani, that is a puzzle that is completely solved by Valentine, and they would be totally fine, I think, going back into a map like that.
Yeah, I mean, again, the only reason I could potentially see it if they actually wanted to test it or play into it is because they know that they're in the upper bracket, where if they wanted to try it because they know they have a second chance, but even then, I still agree with you. I think it's too much of a risk. Like, that is a small variable, and there was presentation of Ashe, which again, when it comes to this map, that's something that can be very, very strong, and we've seen historically, and also maybe that aspect of it is still to carry over from it, since Yes did try to bring that to the table. So a number of factors that I'm really looking forward to seeing on this map specifically.
Yeah, and I'm not like, I think you can still, I mean, third point is going to be really hard for Hammond. But like first 2 points, Hammond probably can operate still pretty well. In terms of just being able to. And I think also the other thing we have to kind of look at is this going to be a hazard map? Because we saw back when Route 66 got played in our first series, a lot of that like Winston D.Va started coming to the table, where it was a lot more of those vertical mobility. And while you do have some vertical ability from Hazard, it's very much more on a like even playing field. On like the lower ground, you want to be playing and going like straight, not like up in anything in those terms. So I think that this is another potential wrinkle that we could see from this team because of the fact that we've seen a little bit more of that Hammond. It does work on a map like this. I don't know if it's necessarily better than something like we saw with the Numbani, but at least on the defensive end, you do have kind of that runway of a lane in terms of the escort map to work with it. Better than if you're just kind of standing like as a ball above Havana and just wait, or above Numbani and just waiting to drop down.
Just wait. Patience is a virtue in moments like that. But I mean, again, when it's in this kind of position, I think it could really go either way. I think that there is a reasonable explanation to try both. But I mean, with the other aspect too is that when we do think about like the Hazard aspect into this, the methodology behind Hazard, I think also really changes, because typically like when we think of, you know, like Winston, like there's a dive mechanic to this, but because of the wall vault, because of the ability to do that, in addition to just the frontal jump, it's like there's so many little kind of like nuanceical changes to having the Hazard into this. I'm really interested to see how that's going to face off against the way that Yas is going to play, and see if that also kind of changes the outcome in this map specifically.
Vaulting is just like it's just slower, right? It's not as on demand, I think, as like as how you view like a D.Va or a Winston, where it's like I hit my one button and I go, right? Like I go. Right. If you have to vault it, like you do have a jump if you are Hazard, but it's not like, I think it works the same on like a neutral ground where you're like on the low ground and like just going forward instead of something like vertical mobility. It's not like you can't have any vertical mobility as Hazard. It's just different as how it would operate on something like a Winston or a D.Va. That is, which I like, because I like having kind of divey tanks that don't necessarily operate in the same lane as something like a Winston or like a D.Va. So I think that it'll be nice to see a little bit of a break from the Hazard as well, because we've seen it a lot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We've seen it a ton, as we're going to be now going into this map. And again, a moment where we could see Valentine perform just as well as we just had Nightmare earlier. And again, I think with what we've seen so far, that I mean, there's still a chance here for Yes, but with the precision and just confidence that this team is bringing to the table from Valentine, and just the overall leadership, like we mentioned about team management, that this team is one to really also keep an eye on and how they're going to be moving through this bracket.
I mean, if there's anyone I know who can put together a good team, it's Aeroplane.
It's Aeroplane!
Aeroplane's done it for a very long time in the scene, so she's definitely someone who can make things happen in terms of assembling a team. And it looks like this team is one win away from taking themselves to that upper bracket final against Nightmare Eclipse, so this team's rocking and rolling right now. Okay,
now,
Hammond.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're gonna try on the defense here.
So I think the thing to kind of think about as why this is different than Numbani or something like that. You have this area, like the street of you can play a little bit more to your own pace, right? You can set up the dive, you can dictate where you want to be in terms of like being the aggressor, right? You couldn't really do that on Numbani when you're kind of just hanging on top of the defense and just waiting patiently. Here you have a little bit of that opportunity to play around with the long lane of a map like this and really push the Hammond to its limits. I think that's kind of why we're seeing a map like this and why they're still going for it.
Oh my goodness! All right, Sylvanas, for the Horde. As
as Valentine comes in with a quick piece.
That's such a good skin too. It's such a good.
That's what I'm saying. I saw it instantly, and I'm like, yep, okay. Because now you can see with 3 minutes and 40 seconds, 20 seconds, gets that instant pickup onto the Lucio, has to come back into it. And now Ivory going to see if there's anyone that's going to be out far enough. Really not too much. Up top, the Wrecking Ball now going to try and transition across the rooftops. But not really any stun opportunity yet.
The Dynamite comes in, but I like the positioning right here of Mari on Bugsuit, just trying to make sure that the Ashe isn't able to follow up on these engages from the Hammond. That's really where you can kind of see this combo get a lot of value. And look at the health bars from yes, they're just depleting right now because all of their cooldowns are being used, and they're just not finding the value, not to any fault of their own, but just to really well-played peel coming out from Valentine and just not letting the positioning of yes really get a lot of value. Kanata's going to come back on, gets instantly taken down, and yes are looking like it's a bit of a dire straits right now.
Not to mention when you have the point of view of Bug Soup and you just see Zoe dashing between the front view of just up from this corner, up, cross from that corner, up, coming down from the top corner. Like, it's just
I think I think this is a perfect indication of like why Hitscan feels a little bit weak, is that like if you just get walked at by Genji and by Hazard and you don't get to play the game. And Shula's a very talented DPS, but just unfortunately not able to get the amount of value that they would like.
Nice move to come in and separate the stun from the Wrecking Ball. Downpour gonna come in, doesn't quite land, so falling back to the point for the moment, really to stabilize until the group recovers, as Sabotabi has to get that health pack and look for potentially a sneaky pulse. But again, actually it's the stick. Okay, there we go. That was very good. Very well done.
That's one way to punish the checking that Bernice has been so good at throughout all of this, but yes, because of the pace of this game, Kitsune Rush is available here for AJMR already.
Well, and the thing is too, is Sabotabi's on the low ground and just kind of looking up. Like, can't really get there to assist until drop down on, and Zoe's looking for the chase, getting the decent amount of shuriken damage until finally bringing that Tracer out of the mix.
Sabotabi goes down, that means the Tracer isn't here, and the Sound Barrier comes out. They know that they have such an advantage right now. Noya not even close to theirs, and a desperate minefield thrown out by Kanata to try and stop the bleeding, but Valentine are on a complete rampage right now, and Rich, I don't know if anything's gonna stop him. I mean, this is the hardest part to also play Hammond in, so this makes it even harder.
I mean, it makes me wonder if there's gonna be any sort of adjustment in the last moments, like after getting through this checkpoint. This hold here is important, and especially with Bob looking to also stick close enough to keep that payload to allow the Wrecking Ball to deviate away from the position. But the overclock now is active, looking for the couple of decent shots. AJMR being down is really significant, so it's Bernice the only one who can keep this team healthy, which is going to be a challenge as the area of effect has to be close in proximity to do so. Valentine, though, really unchecked with Ivory on the high ground, and Bug Soup just going to play on the mainland towards where that cart is, and it's unfortunately just going to be one shot after another, and it's a cleanup now, and this checkpoint has been reached.
That's so clutch from Valentine. I mean, again, the composure is just so strong from them. They were losing that fight for the majority of it, and then they just play patiently. They play around their advantages when they know they have CDs, and now the kill feed is lighting up orange, and they have all the positioning to work with. Ivory's going to have all of the sight lines. Shul is just not having a good time playing Hitscan against this combination right now.
Down on the wall now, going to block some of the incoming trajectory. You can see the Sound Barrier is primed and ready to mitigate. Couple of decent shots, 8 HP. So dangerously low. And again, there's still just this consistent movement forward. There's no way that yes has been able to crack the code. The pulse bomb goes in once again. This time, unfortunately, it does not stick. Zoe with the blade, looking for the back line. Attempts to counterplay Shoal, but that's at least a shutdown until a flanking Bug Soup comes in. And now things are looking a little dire as the staggers continue to come through. The payload is pushing forward. The Sound Barrier as a desperate play from yes to hold on for dear life. 3 minutes on the time bank right now, and it is all Valentine all day as that is a pickup from the Downpour. And this will be a round completion in, once again, an extremely stylish fashion.
Very, very convincing here from this team of Valentine, and it feels like we're seeing kind of the same series that we saw previously, where we were talking about, you know, before how much parity it felt like there was, you know, with how the upset that we saw Yes make over Queen's Gambit. And in both of these upper semis, it's just been washes so far. It's very surprising to me how these two matches have turned out, and this looks like it's a very convincing 3-0 about to be for Valentine to take them to match up against Nightmare Eclipse.
Now, it is the last opportunity here for Yes. They have not only a completion to have to gain, but then go a second time with a time bank that's quite massive. I mean, I've not seen this map in some
Dorado,
time,
yeah.
but for Dorado to see 3 minutes, that's pretty wicked.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about it is that, like, they do have that extra life, right? They do have that ability to go to that lower side and figure out a way to, you know, see if they can make something happen with this composition, or go back to like the standard Hazard play. The Queen's Gambit's probably down there being like, we want you.
Right?
we want revenge so bad because you knocked us into that. You did not just hit me with the Soldier Boy reference in the year of our Lord 2025.
See, you had to change it to 2025, so you already had to make some changes in that statement.
I cannot believe you are making you references. Those are gone. We don't do that anymore.
They're never gone if you allow them to live on.
If you tell me to crank that, I will leave my chair.
As we see 3 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock. Door opens. Shoal attempting to be on this Widowmaker, which really isn't unfortunately getting much value. The shots haven't landed, especially with the chip damage that comes in from the backside. Valentine playing very dominantly defensively, but Bugsoup needs to be careful, really utilizing this small little corridor to get themselves out of a sticky position as the shots are fired. Ivory, again, though, on this specific play has, like you mentioned, been so helpful.
Yeah, I think the Cassidy works. Oh, and actually he's able to take down Shul on the Cassidy. 2 headshots, and the Widowmaker goes down. You can see just how well positioned. I love where they're playing in terms of like against the Hammond, because they're playing in these very enclosed areas on those high grounds, and that means the Hammonds can't get value, and they're also just juggling with Zoe on the point, so that way Yes can't push it so aggressively as a very aggressive engage comes in from Bugsoup.
Well, not only just denying the Wrecking Ball aspect of it, but the fact is that because you have the jagged wall, it also can just basically cut off any sort of follow-through engagement and just get out scot-free.
I mean, you're seeing Shul just trying to find like a miracle pick somehow, some way on the Widowmaker to break this fight open, as though he's gonna win the Tracer 1v1 in the side lane. And oh, Rich, it's feeling a bit dire here for Yes. I mean, Pulse Bomb's gonna be available soon for Sabotabi. That's really, I think, what they got to bank on, is finding one of those supports and really making it difficult. Or Shul getting a nice pick.
That's a big opportunity, though. The chase is happening. You see Bugsoup chasing in the back, able to get Shoal, so that is not what you want to see. As this payload is still continuing to push. Okay, Sabotabi gets Bernice. That's nice. That's nice. It's what you need. High Noon, there's gets the pick. Beautiful recovery. The combination with AJMR being right there to get the assist on the layup is beautifully done with a minute 40.
Yeah, great Suzu keeps the High Noon alive to make sure that they can secure the kill. Here comes a nice engage, though. You can already see in the backline the support's getting taken down low, but Zoe looking for potential with this Pulse Bomb, and Shoal ends up going down to Bugsoup. That just feels like what it's like to play hit scan against Hazard right now. Kanata goes down 2, and a minute left for Yes, and it looks like they are going to be heading to that lower bracket unless a miracle happens here.
And the other aspect of it, too, is kind of like talking about the Sojourn from our interview, where you utilize the Sojourn and then you use the dash as a movement. But Shoal has been using the grapple to get into a position, and then at that point, once the Hazard dives in, there's no way to get out.
Ooh.
Big shot, though, onto Ivory. But here comes the follow-up. The grapple isn't ready. The chase begins. The downpour.
That's so mean.
Oh, trying to collapse onto Shoal doesn't work out. The grapple also doesn't, and now you're gonna flee once again for your life. As this reposition. Oh no. Suzu holds on, has to get a health pack while the fight still continues. The Kitsune Rush comes into the choke point. Bugsoup has plenty of time to sit near the payload, as it's only 30 seconds left to go right now.
Pulse bomb. Zoe looking for something in the back line.
Patience is a virtue. Goes up top, though. Now back onto the card. Decent chip damage with the great pickup onto Noya. Pulse bomb stick. Oh! Doesn't have anything to survive through it. The Suzu. Okay. So now with Yes looking to regroup, they're going to get one last shot at this. The checkpoint is still quite a distance away, but needs to be to the point. Is anybody there to touch it? They keep it contested, but Sabotabi is down. Bernice gets the elimination, so that's going to have to force this Wrecking Ball to rotate back into it, and they've been able to do so because Shoal gets one onto Bernice.
I mean, it's possible. You can see Buck Soup is just waiting in the wings right here, but found out, actually, and this might be the miracle that Yas was looking for. Bug Soup is down. Oh, Shoal gets taken down solo by AJMR.
Has to get the health back. Morgan now onto the case. Ivory comes in with a wild pick. We'll see some hammer kills maybe. We can only hope and pray, but the elimination comes in. Sabotabi brings down the Swiss. And now Zoe having that pulse bomb shot already to the body, gets the half health. Overtime!
Oh no!
The coordination between the Tracer and the Wrecking Ball fall apart, and that allows for Valentine to move on. That is everything you never wanted to see, friends.
Charles IX graces us at the very end here, and it was looking like it was possible, man. I mean, Shoal was popping off on the Widowmaker. I see that it said that Commander X said that Shoal is the French PGE, and it was looking like that for a bit. I mean, the Widowmaker was having some good moments. Unfortunately, had to deal with Hazard on the other side, but yeah, that's an unfortunate way for that to end. It looked like there was really potential. I mean, it would have been hard to win the map, but ending on a C9 is unfortunate there, as we'll see some replays.
Oh, dirty. Just dirty. The Banshee Queen comes out.
I'm surprised at how convincing these were, by the way. Both of these, like this map and the other upper semi.
I mean, realistically, that's to me though. When you think about Valentine versus Nightmare Eclipse, I think that's gonna be
a series
crazy wild between those two. As we can again talk about Yes to the point of looking and evaluating what they have to bring to the table and how in that lower bracket they can strengthen what they want and in this composition, and if the Wrecking Ball is something they really want to continue to invest in. Oh, that's so close. That's so, like,
I think I'm so mad. I'm so mad if I'm one of those players.
Yeah, like I mean, you can see how close they are.
I'm there.
That's one of those moments where it's me in a competitive game where I'm like, I'm on it. I'm actually on it. I don't know what the game's talking about. I'm on it. I'm on it. I'm on it. And then everybody else in the
we'll just say something
just
like ping or
really
ping,
not
ping
on
diff,
it.
Ping diff
yeah,
or
like
something
you're
like that.
really not on it. And I'm like, I know otherwise because I know. I know. But yes, we're going to be heading to a short break here so we can get a wonderful interview. So don't go anywhere, friends, as we're going to be able to get some insight on how this team is going to continue moving forward. Valentine now looking forward to face off against Nightmare Eclipse. So don't go anywhere because I'm curious to see how they feel about that. Why? Hello, friends. You get to see us again. Yes, we have an interview, but we will give some time since I know that the team is excited in probably conversing about how their success went so successfully. But we get to look at some replays and talk a little bit more at length about the success that has just happened and what might actually happen, in the foreseeable future moving through this upper bracket.
It also means more drops for chat, so I know we're happy.
That too. Yeah.
But I think this is the interesting thing to me about this matchup in particular was that it felt like we almost watched exactly the same map as like what we did with Nightmare. The compositions were a little bit different in terms of like this Hammond composition that we were seeing, but I think that when you look at the meta composition, like the Hazard and things like that, when you look at those compositions, it felt like there was no one who really like missed a step. Like I think the supports were fantastic. Like Mari was very, very good on this Hazard as well, and the DPS were stepping up their step twos. And it's what we saw from Nightmare, where it's like there isn't really a weakness I saw. Like there wasn't something I could point to and be like, oh yeah, that's something that could hurt them maybe later on. Besides like maybe just a little bit over aggression when they knew they had it in the bag. But beyond that, I mean, that matchup, I don't want to curse it because I said that these matchups would be close. I feel like that one though, the Nightmare Eclipse versus Valentine one, is definitely hopefully, fingers crossed for drops and everything like that, and just the love of the game. Hopefully that one is a little bit more close in terms and has a little more parity than these two.
Somebody's gonna clip that. Somebody's gonna clip that and then like DM it to you and be
It's
like,
my fault.
when we get to that point, he's just like, I'm gonna hold you to this.
We're
I'm gonna
usually
hold you
really
to it.
good though with map 5.
I know, we really are. We have some
We don't
sort
get a
of
lot of
wizardry. If anything, it's because most of the time we've like compiled it into, I think, a massive like amalgamation of just keeping to map 5s, and then at the beginning of the year we're like, oh well, you got to refill the tank. For right now, we're just we're accumulating,
refilling our
asset.
2025 tank.
So it pays dividends later on in other competitions of 2025. Like that's what's happening right now. We're empty. We have to collectively gather enough sorrowful, maybe fast 3-0s, and that's, I don't know. that's how we want to look at it, but we do our best, friends. As we do our best. But yes, we are ready and do have the interview, as we're going to be speaking to Valentine, a player from Valentine, and we'll be seeing who do we have. It's gonna be okay, awesome. Ivory, how are you doing, my friend? Welcome, as we are gonna get to chit chat with you a little bit. So how you feeling after that one? Quite a dominant performance. You have to be feeling great.
Yeah, I'm excited for tomorrow. That was where my goal was, to just get to tomorrow and play Nightmare. I was a little frustrated. I was a little frustrated playing into the ball just because it, like, I don't know, ball comp just makes the game feel like TDM rather than Overwatch. So I kind of just have to walk everywhere and just survive. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but
just flashbang Hammond every time Hammond goes in. It's just like, that's all I do. So I'm actually really happy that we got a Sojourn player, because we've had 2 interviews today from other Sojourn players. One said that Sojourn kind of takes a little bit more of this backseat role, is more supportive, and then someone else said that, I believe it was on Nightmare, said that you can still pop off as Sojourn, and if you have but you have like very specific windows. I'm wondering what your kind of thought is and what side of the fence you're on in terms of where Sojourn fits into compositions like this.
I think it goes both ways. The support role is going to be mostly like tickling people with rail to set up your Hazard and Genji, because those are going to be like your main engagers, and they're like calling out the fights to you and where they want to path. So if you're not able to listen to those comms and set up a rail for like a kill on a squishy, then you're not going to be able to do anything on Sojourn. And then as well as like that like carry aspect, like OC turning a fight, or just kind of getting picks in the early fight if squishies are out of position, because a lot of this comp is based on like where you're stepping, and if you overstep, then you're just gonna blow up. So
okay, so at this point we know right now that it's still a 50-50. So we've heard from one side, then the other side, and you're like,
and then we heard both. So
yeah, it's I don't think it's like previous Soj metas where you just like put all your resources into your Soj and let her kill things. We're never gonna probably see that again, but she has her pop-off moments, but it's nothing like old Sojourn.
Okay. So, moving forward, and like you had mentioned, getting through today and looking forward to just competing tomorrow. and facing off against Nightmare Eclipse. What's the kind of thought process going into an opponent like that, especially with, you may have, you may not have been directly watching, but like you'll be looking and seeing that they also had a 3-0. What's kind of that mentality and expectation going into that opponent?
I mean, I'm friends with all the Nightmare players. I know they're all good players, so my expectations are going to be a dogfight. I believe that we can beat them, but the only way we're going to beat them is if we're on our game and playing at full capacity and together. It's a team game at the end of the day. Nobody's going to like make or break it, but I'm ready to face against Bun and Peace. I love Bun. Shout out her. She's amazing. But in general, I'm just ready to, hit my shots and hopefully, come out on top.
Bring a little of that carry potential Sojourn. But one of the things also about kind of how the comp has operated a little bit, bring it back to this not really divey aspect, but like Hazard in general. Do you think that like hit scan is just like so insanely hard to play against Hazard? Like it feels like there's almost no way to like opt into anything else. It has to be something that has like some mobility, like a Sojourn. Like, is there any avenue for anything else, or is it just like I'm stuck in Sojourn jail for a little bit?
I think that like Cass and a few other characters have their spots to shine. The unfortunate spot is, or like part about it, is that COD doesn't have bans, so Sojourn's going to reign supreme over them just because of the mobility. If there was like a Soj ban, you would see a lot more Ashe and like Cash shining, or maybe even like double flex DPS. But as of right now, yeah, you're kind of in that Soj jail. Okay. just because of like the amount of slide basically.
Okay.
Well, I mean, realistically, we're excited to see the way that you've performed and looking to have that competition between Nightmare Eclipse, who you are looking forward to. Again, being friends with all of them, there is some definite like camaraderie aspect, but knowing that at the end of the day, it is a competition and being able to do the best that you can to perform against it to move into, that victory #1 spot to get not only the money, but those trophies and the chairs as well. So thank you so very much tremendously for your time and giving us that insight, and kind of also giving another perspective on your thoughts and revolving around the methodology behind a lot of the composition. So we hope you have a wonderful night and are really looking forward to seeing the performances tomorrow.
I appreciate it. You as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ivory.
Oh, goodness. Alrighty. We're towards the end of it. We had the first match, which was a 3-1, and it was going a little bit further. And then you and I, unfortunately, we kind of were like,
unfortunately,
white towel. Just white towel. Just throw in the white towel, and that's it. And yeah, it's great.
I think Ivory is right, though. This should be a dogfight based on what we saw between both those teams. But before we look at the upper bracket, we'll look at the lower bracket. Queen's Gambit. It's not on the same side as yes, but they're definitely
not
like,
yet.
They're looking at that lower bracket 23, and they're like, oh, that's where we want to be.
Right.
That's where we want to be, right there, facing off against yes. But that Queen's Gambit team, I'm telling you, is one to look out for as they try and make their way through that lower bracket side. And now we can take a look at the upper bracket as well and see where we are at, and how, unfortunately, Rich and I cursed the upper semifinals here with the 3-0 and with the 3-0, but Valentine moving on 3-0 to face Nightmare Eclipse there in that winners finals, and that should be, like I think Ivory just said, an absolute dogfight. Wouldn't be shocked if that went all 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna take your words a little bit and be just like, that's gonna be a barn burner. It's gonna be a good one. A slobber knocker's another one. Yeah, I was like, ooh, start of the year, you gotta start using your terms. As we're going to now take a look at what we still have for this weekend. Again, this is day 2. So far we've had 6 series of Overwatch so far, and now we've got plenty more still to go. 4 tomorrow, and then 3 on day 4, January 12th, where we do have that first round beginning. Again, same time, both for day 3 and for day 4, where it's going to be that 11 a.m. PT time. So make sure that you are tuning in at that time specifically and respectively to your respective time zone, so that you are not going to miss the action and, of course, your drops. But from us, honestly, I mean, it's been fantastic. We are super and eternally grateful for having such great sponsors. Again, Blacklight, we had mentioned it throughout the broadcast. We always have to continue mentioning how significant it is to have the contribution and just allowing it to bring something like this to life. And just the partnership along with Radiant, everything about it. We wouldn't have this broadcast to show these types of performances. And then also, like, on all these interviews, talking to the most recent interview where they know each other in this community, and they have such a great bond, even though this is a competition. And this type of opportunity for us to be talking about it is all without them, it wouldn't be here. So
I mean, you and I kind of got into COD just a little bit recently in terms of just like being part of it and being part of the talent. We've been watching from afar and supporting from afar, but it's really nice to see kind of like the community that's built around a lot of Calling All Heroes and the initiative, and just everything about it is awesome. And I have enjoyed being part of it, whether it's casting with Dogman, casting with you, just with anyone here. And I think that it's a great thing that we continue to have Calling All Heroes, and you should try and support it as best as you can. We're talking a lot, like we're doing all this. You are getting dropped. Someone out there is going to get dropped.
We're making
by
up
like
for the
a
3
minute.
O's.
Yeah, someone's going to get dropped by like a minute, but we are wholeheartedly very honored to be here, I think, Rich and I.
Yep, absolutely. Beautiful community. And we're done for today. So we hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. Take care, happy gaming, and we'll see you tomorrow, friends.